live again to answer your objections to Christianity, talk about the evidence for Christianity, and all of that good stuff. And so, I already have somebody waiting backstage. Bring him up here. My Greek friend here. I'm assuming that's Greek. You're muted.
Yes, sorry.
No,
Also,
fine.
excuse me for my accent. It's
We'll excuse the accent. We'll excuse the accent.
okay.
It's put up with
I
you
will try
putting
my
up with
best
all of our
to
accents.
sound normal.
Yeah. We're the ones with the funny accents. So, what's up, bro? What brings you up?
Before we start, you're the reason why I'm not a Muslim, so thank you for that.
Oh, well,
I almost became Muslim at the dark age of my life.
that sounds like a dark age.
Yes, that was a dark age. Thankfully, I'm not a Muslim now. This could have been bad.
Well,
And I tried to join in the previous life too, but had not device connected. I think my device wasn't really connected.
oh, okay. No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. So, are you a Christian?
No, I'm not. I'm not really. Although I live in a very Christian country, my family isn't very Christian. My father is an atheist. My mother is, I don't know what she is. So I wasn't really raised in Christianity. But I did stumble upon it, however, and I want to convert, but there are some issues I have.
Okay. Yeah. Let me lay them on me, bro, and we'll discuss them.
Okay, so should I begin?
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, it's about the Old Testament. The flood. The flood. Flood. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, the flood. The flood. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
My language is not very great. Sorry. Yes, it's the flood. How can science says that it's impossible for a worldwide flood to cover the whole Earth and then somehow creatures to re-involve? It's impossible. How do you explain that?
With a global flood, it's not an area that I've really looked at, to be completely honest with you. And so if I don't know the answer to something, I'm not going to pretend that I do. My friend Michael Jones from Inspiring Philosophy.
Yes. I really like his channel.
He's done a video on that. I'm more of a New Testament guy. I spend most of my time talking about the reliability of the Gospels, the resurrection, the conversion of the Apostle Paul. Did Jesus claim to be God? Those kinds of things. And so I think if those things are true, then that supports evidence for Christianity. Now, Jesus did, I believe he claimed to be God. And there are times where he refers to the flood in when he's teaching. And so I'm trying to, let me see if I can find it real quick. I just kind of take it as Jesus is a pretty strong authority since he claimed to be God and he backed it up with the resurrection. And so when he talks about something like the flood happening, and he does, then I just take it that however that works out, whether it's a local flood, whether it's a global flood, whatever it is something that is historical. Most people who take like a local flood kind of view, it would still be a really bad kind of weather kind of thing, but it's not like this worldwide destruction and all that other kind of stuff. I think there's room for healthy in-house debate, but I don't think it's like that bad of a, like that serious of an issue there. So, like Jesus mentions in Matthew 24:38, for in the days of the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving into marriage up to the day Noah entered into the ark. And so if Jesus claimed to be God and he did back it up with miracles and his resurrection, then however you slice it, Jesus doesn't have a false belief. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes,
yeah. So I hate to be a disappointment. It's just not like my area where I've really studied. Maybe one day I'll look into it. It's just not my main interests lie in like what strikes at the very heart of the Christian faith. And this is more on the peripheral. And like I said, different Christians disagree about it, whether it's global or local or whatever.
Yes, I won't really bother you with that much. With that, if it's not really your field.
Yeah.
So should I jump in the New Testament? Do you prefer that?
What's that?
Should I probably go to the New Testament for my objections, because I see your specialty isn't very in the Old?
Yeah, it would probably be best to talk about New Testament
Okay,
objections.
okay.
Yeah.
My main objection is that most scholars actually agree that it's not very preserved. I dare say it's not exactly. Some even say that it's not even written by the apostles themselves. It's fabricated, or everything is fabricated, or at least the Gospel of John is fabricated. Some say, and
Fabricated?
most seem to agree on that. It's only like 60% of the scholars, I believe.
Yeah, no. As far as like most critical scholars are going to say that Paul wrote at least 7 out of the 13 letters that are attributed to him.
Yes,
That would
Paul,
be
yes, but about the Gospels,
the Gospels, though. People will say, "Oh, well, those are anonymous," yada yada yada. And so I can we can talk about evidence for why I think not only did John write it, but that he's an actual eyewitness. If we want to go into that,
yes, we
okay,
can go into that.
yeah. Let's do that. And so, give me 1 second here. I'm just gonna pull up some.
Give me a second as well to probably set my phone better.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay.
Okay. And so first of all, the beloved disciple himself claims to be the author and the eyewitness. So in John 21:24, it says that this is the disciple who is bearing witness and who has written these things, and we know his testimony is true. Some people will push back and they'll go, we know, like, what's that? Like, why is there this plural or something like that? I think that's just probably a brief editorial endorsement. It's not talking about multiple authors, just like Paul used scribes, like, and even in Romans 16:22, you see, I, Tertius, who wrote this in the letter, greet you. But anyways, he is claiming that this is coming from a disciple who is bearing witness, right? So at the very least, prima facie, it claims to be an eyewitness account.
Because some even claim he didn't even claim to be an eyewitness. Some even say that.
Say what now?
Some scholars claim that they don't even claim to be eyewitnesses themselves, the writers.
Well, this one is claiming to be an eyewitness. This is John.
Yes.
Since you brought up John, we're just going to stick with John
for
right now. And so, and then John 19:35 says, he who saw it and is born witness, his testimony is true, that you may also believe. And so again, he's claiming to be eyewitness. The eyewitness is who saw it, which is the beloved disciple. If you look at John 19:26, let me just pull it up real quick. Again, these are just his claims, right? I mean, anybody can claim something. And so, but if you see here, it says, and when Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said, woman, here's your son. And the disciple said, here's your mother. From that time, this disciple took her into his home. So this is the person who, again, is claiming to be the author. And then 1 John 1:1-3, it says, what we have heard, seen with our eyes, touched with our hands, we proclaim to you. So we could just look at that real quick. Now, just bear with me because there's a lot of evidence. Right now, I'm just saying that this guy is claiming to be an eyewitness. And so it says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked on with our hands and have touched, this we proclaim to you concerning the word of life. The life appeared, and we seen it and testify to it, and we proclaim to you eternal life, which the Father, which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard. So again, he's claiming pretty strongly here to be an eyewitness. Okay. And then the author, like I said, he claims to be firsthand witness of Jesus's ministry, the crucifixion, which is consistent with the identification of the beloved disciple, the author of the fourth gospel. And so now when we're looking at evidence, right, a lot of people will say, well, Eric, like if Jesus really rose from the dead, like wouldn't you expect like major Roman or Jewish historians, people in the area mentioning these things? But if they did do that, they would probably become Christians if they actually believed that these things happened. So I think a better kind of evidence, something that is stronger than that, is that we can look at the kind of details that are found in the Gospel of John and find out what kind of an author he actually is, right? And so if we find that John actually mentions in passing facts about the historical setting and details and makes these casual mentions about obscure facts, that's like cumulatively, that's a lot of like indirect evidence that like this guy is like close up to the facts, that actually knows what he's talking about, and he's there, right? And so let me give you some examples of this. And so if you remember in John's gospel, in John 1:46, there's this mention where they talk about Jesus of Nazareth, and they're saying, yeah, we think this guy's the Messiah, and you should go meet him. And one of these future disciples goes, his name is Nathaniel, goes, can anything good come out of Nazareth? It's kind of like an insult, like Nazareth, like what's this stigma about being from Nazareth? And then in John 7:52, there is some disagreement in the crowd amongst like who Jesus is. Is he a good man? Is he a prophet? What's the deal? What's going on with him? Is he the Messiah? And the Pharisees are basically arguing with the people in the crowds who are in favor of Jesus. And they say, search and see that no prophet arises from Galilee. And so both times here we see like this contempt for Galileans. What's up with that? Well, if we actually go to the Babylonian Talmud, there's a tractate, Reuben 53a, and it talks about
what exactly is the Talmud? I don't understand. Really.
Oh, sure. The Talmud is basically like a bunch of rabbis
discussing. I know kind of what it is, but I also know it's not very trustworthy, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like it's scripture at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's a historical source of sorts that tells us what rabbis were arguing about, what they were debating about, what they were discussing, and different things like that. And what I'm showing by giving you this quote here, I'll give you the quotes, and then I'll explain why I'm showing it to you. And so basically in the Talmud, we see this same kind of Jewish disdain from people who are from Judea, the southern part of the area near Jerusalem. They also show this same disdain that we find in the Gospel of John. So in this tractate, it says the children of Judah retained all that they learned. So they're saying the people from Judah, they're smart. The Galileans, however, they did not. Like, the Galileans are stupid, apparently. This is another quote from the same tractate. The Galileans had many teachers and did not retain anything. Or another one, thou Galilean fool, did not our sages say, thou shouldest not converse much with a woman? And so the biblical scholar J.B. Lightfoot says, foolish Galilean was the inevitable address when a Galilean appeared in dialogue. So the point that I'm trying to make is that here is the author of John's gospel, without drawing any kind of attention to it, is just showing that like the crowds have this disdain for people from Nazareth. And
by the Talmud.
Yeah, and we see the exact same kind of thing reflected in the Talmud. So this is confirmed externally that they had that same attitude, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does actually.
Yeah. And it's
but how do we know it's John? I mean, it could be just somebody who knows about the area or knows about the customs, the area, and it could just fabricate it.
Yeah, that's a fair question. And so the reason why we would know that it is John is, let me show you a little something. Besides the fact that every single external like church father says that it's John, and every scrap of manuscript evidence shows that it's John, I think there's also some internal clues. So I can go over the external stuff of like who said it was John who wrote it, or I can show you like internally why I think it was not just an eyewitness but also John. Does that make?
I rather see the external.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah. Give me 1 second here. Let me just pull up some sources. Oops, 1 second. Okay. So let me pull it up here real quick.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Yeah, no worries. Oops. Sorry. Okay. One second here. Just let me share my screen again. All right, I'm going to give you a bunch, so just hang with me for just tight, real tight here. And so here, this is from Justin Martyr, writing around probably 150 AD. And it talks about the four Gospels, all of the four Gospels.
Oh, so it's early, even if it's
it's early. And he doesn't
mention only 50 AD.
Yeah, he doesn't mention John directly by name, and I'll give you some people who do. But he talks about the Gospels, and he calls them the memoirs of the apostles, right? And so, and then this is First Apology, chapter 103. But if you go to First Apology 61:14, he quotes John explicitly. Let me see if I can actually pull it up here. Yeah. And says, except ye be born again, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So he calls the Gospels memoirs of the apostles. And then he's quoting John right here. This is a direct reference to John, except you be born again, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So that's only found in John's gospel, right? Now, what's interesting is that Justin also had a student by the name of Tatian. And Tatian made a harmony of the Gospels that is titled the Diatessaron. Well, in Latin, the word diatessaron literally means made of four ingredients or through four. And his harmony begins with the quote.
Yes, it's similar to Greek.
Yeah. And his harmony of the gospel begins with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And so here you have Justin Martyr. He calls the Gospels memoirs of the apostles. He has a student named Tatian who quotes John. And so there's that connection. Okay. Then you also have Irenaeus of Lyon. So in and he says, for we have learned from none others the plan of salvation than whom the gospel has come down to us, which at one time, which they did at one time proclaim in public, in a later period by the will of God, handed us down in the scriptures to be the ground of our faith. It is unlawful to assert that they preached before they possessed perfect knowledge, as some do venture to say, boasting themselves as improvers of the apostles. For after our Lord rose from the dead, the apostles invested power on high with the Holy Spirit, yada, yada, yada. I will skip down to the relevant part. Matthew also issued a written gospel among the Hebrews in their own dialect, while Peter and Paul were preaching at Rome and laying the foundations of the church. After their departure, Mark, the disciple and interpreter of Peter, did also hand down to us in writing, which had been preached by Peter. So he's saying Mark comes from Peter. Then he says, Luke, also the companion of Paul, recorded in a book the gospel preached by him. Afterwards, John, the disciple of the Lord, whom leaned upon his breast, did himself publish a gospel during his residence in Ephesus in Asia. So this is against heresies. This is just 30 years after Justin Martyr. And so that is him saying that he is the person who wrote it, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So just now, Irenaeus says that he was also a student of Polycarp. And so let me see. Bear with me here. I'm sorry. I'm a little
no worries, I wait.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I'm kind of used on waiting, so don't worry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just like a little off today. And so this is again from Irenaeus, and he says, Okay, Irenaeus is saying, I can even describe the place where the blessed Polycarp used to sit in discourse, his going out to and his coming in, his general mode of life, personal appearance, together with the discourses which he delivered to the people, also how he would speak of his familiar discourse with John. So Irenaeus is a student of Polycarp. And who's Polycarp a student of? He's a student of John, right?
Oh,
Yep. And so this is like two links, right? Straight to the source itself. And so this is an external confirmation here of like who wrote it. Well, according to Irenaeus, who was a student of Polycarp, Polycarp was a student of John. He probably got his information very likely from Polycarp and who wrote all four Gospels, including the Gospel of John. So does that make sense?
it does. However, aren't there also some things in, for example, in John, I believe, I don't remember in which gospel it is. I think it's in John. Like some verses or some stories that are some scholars claim are fabricated, like the stoning of the adulterous woman.
Well, even if that's like an interpolation or something like that, the reason why
because
we have
it's not really found in the early manuscripts. Also, sorry for interrupting you all the time.
No, you're good. Just because something is like interpolated, and we have like don't have it in all the manuscripts, doesn't mean like that everything in John is completely fabricated, right? That would be just
Yes,
kind of
but
making up.
even if that one thing is fabricated, then it's a very important part of the Bible, of the story of the adulterous woman. So how do we react with this if there is something fabricated?
Sure. How would it change any kind of Christian doctrine if it didn't exist? If it wasn't?
It doesn't really, that specific story, but it is a very important. Like you think it shouldn't be included in the Bible, in Bibles.
Well, some manuscripts actually included around in Luke's gospel. Okay. And so I don't think that like the story is fake or forged or anything like that. There's a scholar by the name of James Snap who argues that it is historical, that it is justifiably in the Bible. But to me, because it doesn't really have any sort of effect or bearing on any of like the overall message or the doctrine or anything like that, the whole reason why we have textual criticism is to find different things like that. But you're not going to see like, say, the raising of Lazarus or Jesus turning water into wine, like missing in some manuscripts and not others, right? And so to me, it's not like really that important. What we don't want to do is we don't want to be like a Muslim and go, oh, well, because there are like, you have textual criticism and you could show like the longer ending of Mark or John isn't in all the manuscripts. Therefore, that the writers of the Gospels just felt free to make up stuff and all kinds of other stuff. Like, no, that's not the kind of authors that they are. And that's why I was going to originally kind of show you some of the evidences of like who this author is, that he shows himself to be very knowledgeable, that he shows himself to be very honest, that he shows himself to be very close up to the facts. And so that to me is kind of like the more important point, even than who wrote it or anything else like that. It's like one thing to claim to be an eyewitness and, you know, we can determine who wrote it. But if we can actually look at like clues within the document, again, of what kind of author this is, that to me is like the more powerful argument, the more important thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I can go through more of that evidence if you want me to.
No, I don't. I will search it myself.
Okay. I have lots of videos on it. There's also a book called Eye of the Beholder, if you're just interested in John's Gospel like on its own, by Lydia McGrew, that I highly recommend. And there's also Craig Keener, The Historical Reliability of John's Gospel, that you can check out if you're looking for books. And Lydia does have an extensive chapter on the authorship of John's Gospel in there as well.
Okay. And do we have time, or because I do have some more things too?
Yeah, sure. If you got more questions, go for it.
Actually, most of my questions are about the Old Testament, but since it's not really your field, I won't really bother you with the Old Testament. Do you know if Mike Jones does live streams as well?
He does lives, but there generally have been so far like with Muslims. And so I will bug Than about doing like opening it up for everybody.
Okay, because most of my questions are about the Old Testament, actually.
Yeah, but, again, go ahead.
As for the New Testament, I only really have one. Actually, you did help me a lot here.
Okay.
Thank you. But another thing I have is about the divinity of Christ in general, because not most scholars, but some scholars also deny that he claimed to be God, and that's a very important part of Christianity, because if he didn't really claim to be God and we are worshiping him, we are committing a very great sin. So
Yeah.
it is a pretty important part.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. And so I think he very clearly claims to be God, even when he's being asked directly by the high priest. And I can show you that. So
Yes.
give me just
Could you
this.
please show it from the synoptics if you can? So I will not because I don't believe in John, but so I can use it in.
I will give it to you from Mark's gospel, which according to most critics, scholars, is the first gospel. So let me pull up the context a little bit here. Okay, so this is Jesus on trial before the high priest, and it said they were asking who he was and bringing up there was false charges that were being brought against him, and it says that he remained silent and made no answer. But again, the high priest asked him,
Can you please wait for a second? Because I will close my camera for very few. Wait.
Yeah, you're good, man. Let me just answer a question here. Wes is here. Ask. I'll just put him up. Can you unblock me from the studio? I'm not a spammer or something. I had somebody saying it kept popping up in the private chat and saying, well, I can't say what they said, but it was weird and creepy. And so I probably thought you were him because he was coming up under a bunch of different names. And so, yeah, Wes, I don't know how to do that, but as soon as I figure it out, I would be happy to. So let me see what I can do, because somebody was just being crazy. If you have another name that you can use, go for it. But they were coming up under like multiple names and just saying basically 13-year-old craziness. I don't know how to even describe it. It was just a bunch of gross stuff. So
yeah, some people are disgusting.
Okay. Anyways, so Wes, if you could possibly come up for under another name, I would love to bring you up. Sorry if I got block happy. This dude was coming up under like 4 different names. He came up under Rio. He came up under Jeremiah Jew. He came up under Daniel. He came up under, I'm not even going to repeat one of the names because it was just that weird, but yeah. Okay. Going back to your question, did Jesus claim to be God? Okay. So the high priest asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? And Jesus said, I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power, coming in the clouds of heaven. And the high priest tore his garments and said, what further witnesses do you need? You have heard this blasphemy. What is your decision? And they all condemned him to deserving of death. And some began to spit on him and cover his face and strike him, saying, prophesy. And the guards received him with blows. And so they're basically saying, like, who hit you? Okay. So Jesus is asked a question, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? What does he say? He says, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power, coming in the clouds of heaven. And the high priest tears his garments and says, that's blasphemy. Why would he say that's blasphemy? Son of Man, like, he's just saying he's a man. He's not saying he's God. But in order to understand what Jesus is saying, we need to understand the context. And so we're going to look at Daniel chapter 7, 13 and 14, because this is the verse that Jesus is identifying as and referring to himself as. And it says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, the clouds of heaven, there was one who came like a son of man, and he came to the Ancient of Days. It was presented before him, and to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples and nations should serve him. So we're going to come back to this word serve in just a second. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed. And so Daniel, have you ever read the book of Daniel before?
I think I only read the beginning and then I left it because I kind of got bored.
Oh no. You got bored. Daniel's one of my favorites, and it's exciting stuff. It does get kind
Yeah.
of weird once you get to chapter 8. You're like, what is happening here? Because there's just a lot of prophecies and things going on. So to give you some context here, Daniel, this is during the Babylonian exile, and Daniel and his friends,
In
Shadrach,
Babylon. I know the story actually.
you know the story. You know the story. Yeah.
Summary.
So you know the story. They're in exile. Basically, why is Israel in exile to begin with? Because like for a number of different reasons, but one of those was they kept refusing to obey God in the sense of they're worshiping other idols, they're worshiping false gods, right? And so in the stories, there are 2 times where Daniel's friends are basically told to worship false gods and they refuse to do it. And so Nebuchadnezzar sets up this giant golden statue, and he says that you have to basically bow down and worship my statue when the music starts to play, and they absolutely refuse to do it. And so if you look at verse 12, now remember, it says that all nations will serve the Son of Man, right? Well, here in Daniel, it says there are certain Jews whom you have appointed. So this is the accusation against Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it says, these men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up. So this was actually written in Aramaic, and the Aramaic word for serve here is palak, okay? And it says, this is Daniel's response, again, to serve. You won't serve my gods, right? That same word. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you will not serve, you will not palak my gods, or worship the golden image that I have set up? And their response was basically like this: Nebuchadnezzar, we don't have any need to answer. If this be so, the God whom we serve, or palak, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from out of your hand. But even if he doesn't, be it known to you, O king, we will not palak, we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you set up. And so here's that word, like, who is service for? It's not for Nebuchadnezzar. It's not for his golden statue. They're not going to bow down and worship. So every single time that Daniel is using this word, it's always about serving either idols or the Most High God, right? And then they get thrown in a fiery furnace. Basically, an angel comes and delivers them out of there, and he calls them out, and Nebuchadnezzar says, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted him and set aside the king's command, who yielded up their own bodies rather than serve and worship any God except their own God. So there again is that word, right? And it's not just there. It's also, I'm sure you've heard of like Daniel in the lion's den. Basically, King Darius makes a decree because there were some people who did not like Daniel, and they're like, we can't really find anything wrong with Daniel. So in order to get Daniel in trouble, we're going to talk King Darius into making a decree that nobody can pray to any other god except King Darius himself, because these people in these big kingdoms, Darius was the ruler of the Medo-Persians, they basically thought themselves as God, and they talked him into it. And he said, okay. Then they snitched on Daniel and basically said, yeah, he's still praying. We caught him. Yeah, you know the story. And so here again, I'm definitely getting to a point.
I will close my camera for very few time because my father walked in again.
Okay.
But I will open it again.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. Should I wait? We'll go to a super chat real quick here. Macadoodle says, John 1:5-14, Jesus is God. He's the way, the truth, and the life. Amen. That is very true. Very, very true. Yehuda Israel, I'll try to get you up if I can. Let me finish with my guy here. You would be the one to come up next since you were asked. Well, because you're just next in line, period, bro.
Yes, sorry for all the interruptions. My father keeps walking in and interrupting, but
yes, it's okay. And so I'll try to get to the point. So basically, who Daniel refuses to pray to anybody else but God, right? And the king basically is like, I have to stick to my word. but may the God whom you palak continually serve you. And so over and over, that's my whole point. Daniel is saying, don't worship idols, don't worship fake kings, don't worship other gods. But yet when it comes to the Son of Man, all the nations will serve him. They will palak him. Everybody.
So he is God.
What's that?
God. I say this. I kind of confuse the O's with A's, and they say God or God, and they. So he's basically claiming that the Son of Man is actually God himself.
Correct. Right. When he says, I'm the Son of Man, and he's given dominion, glory, and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him, he's basically saying, you don't have authority over me. I'm the one who has the authority here because I am at the right hand of God. And all people, nations, and languages are going to serve me the way that they serve the God of Israel. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then notice also here, it says his dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away. And his kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed. Well, in Daniel, every single time, that refers to the God of Israel again, right? And so this is the words after Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are delivered out of the fiery furnace. What does Nebuchadnezzar say? He's referring to Yahweh. How great are his signs? How mighty are his wonders? His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. 434, at the end of my days, Nebuchadnezzar lifted my eyes to heaven. My reason returned to me. Basically, he went kind of crazy and then came back and was normal again. He says, I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. And then it says, I make a decree. This is Darius after Daniel was delivered from the lion's den, that in all my rule of dominion, people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed. His dominion shall be no end. Well, again, how long does the Son of Man's kingdom last? Forever and ever, right? Yes. And so he's worshipped and he has an everlasting kingdom, showing that he shares in the honors of God. He shares in the authority of God, right? He's given dominion, right? And so this is why I believe the high priest tore his robes and is like, this is blasphemy. Kill this guy, because either he like, here's Jesus making an extremely strong claim about himself when he's being asked while on trial. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's like, what is the Son of Man able to do? Well, according to Jesus, at least, he's able to forgive sins, right? And so you've probably heard the story. There was a paralytic. The crowd couldn't get near to him because of his friends brought him, 4 friends. They couldn't get near him because of the crowd. They removed the roof. And when they made an opening, they let down the bed where the paralytic lay. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, see, your sons are forgiven. Now, some of the scribes are sitting there questioning, why does this man speak like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? And immediately Jesus, perceiving in his spirit that they had thus questioned within themselves, says, why do you question these things in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or say, rise up, take up your bed and walk. But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. And then he heals the man, right? So he's showing them he has the authority to forgive sins. Well, who could forgive sins but God alone, is what they say. And Jesus is like, well, the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins because he shares the authority and the seat and the abilities of God, basically, in this case. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah. So it's
using
pretty.
The Old Testament to prove the New is actually very clever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jesus is quoting the Old Testament. He's speaking to people who would understand the Old Testament, right?
It also kind of unifies them in a way.
Yeah. Let me show you one other thing real quick, and then I'll probably get to my next guest here.
Yes.
1 second. So this is Ezekiel 1. Okay, so Ezekiel is having a vision of Yahweh, right? And it says, above the expanse over their heads, there was a likeness of throne, an appearance like sapphire, seated above the likeness of a throne, a likeness with a human appearance. And upward from what he had was an appearance of his waist, as it were, gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire enclosed all around, and downward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw the appearance of fire, and there was a brightness around him, like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain. So was the appearance of brightness all around. And so such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face and heard the voice speaking. So obviously he's seeing like a theophany. He's seeing God, right? And so let me show you again, going back to Daniel chapter 7. We'll see some similarities here. It says, I'm in chapter 4. Okay. It says, as I looked, thrones were placed. The Ancient of Days took a seat. His clothing was white as snow, his hair pure like white wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning a fire. A stream of fire issued and came out from it. Thousands of thousands served him. Tens of thousands times 10,000 stood before him. A court sat in judgment, and the books were open. And then it says, I looked because of the sound of the great words of the horn, blah, blah, blah. And it talks about the Son of Man. And so notice here that Ezekiel sees somebody on a throne. And
That's
on the throne,
story.
and the throne was like a figure. Whoops. Let me back up here. I'm all over the place. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to get back to Ezekiel. On a throne, he sees a figure, and then, well, what does Daniel see? Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took a seat. Again, Ezekiel sees a human-like figure, a likeness with a human appearance, seated on the throne. What does Daniel see? One like the Son of Man come with the clouds. What does Ezekiel see in 127? Something that looked like a glowing metal, fire all around. What does Daniel see? A throne of fire, a stream of fire was issued. And so, according to traditional dating, Daniel and Ezekiel were writing at the same time. Where Ezekiel saw one figure, Daniel sees two. So does that make sense?
So how do we know they're talking about the same scene?
Well, it's because of the descriptions, right? And so we see it. I'm not saying he's seeing the exact same scene. I'm saying he's seeing one figure, but they're describing same things in the sense of like what the appearance was like, right? A likeness with human appearance seated on a throne. Was Daniel again see one like a Son of Man who came on the clouds? A throne of fire is in both, right? Something that looked like glowing metal, fire all around. What is seen in Daniel? A throne of fire, a stream of fire was issued. And then again in Ezekiel, it says that there was a throne, and on the throne was a figure. Well, Daniel says that the thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. And so they're both having theophanies, but where Ezekiel only sees one, they're writing at the same time. Daniel actually sees two, right? He sees this other being, the Son of Man, who again receives the same honors and authority as God himself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
In that part,
yeah. Let me show you one more, and then I'll bring up the next guy here real quick. And so this is Jesus speaking, and he says, when the Son of Man comes in glory, all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations. He will separate people one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Okay. So here he says that he has the authority to judge, and he's going to separate the sheep and the goats. Well, he's making an allusion, I believe. First, he's saying, I'm the Son of Man. I can do that. I have the authority to judge. But then in Ezekiel 34:17 in 20 through 22, it says, as for you, my flock, says the Lord God, behold, I judge between the sheep and sheep, between the rams and male goats. So who has that authority to do that? According to Ezekiel, it's the Lord God. According to Jesus in Matthew chapter 25, it's the Son of Man. And then he says, therefore, thus says the Lord God, behold, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep, because you push with side and shoulder and thrust the weak with your horns till you scatter them abroad. I will rescue my flock. They will no longer be a prey, and I will judge between sheep and sheep. And so Jesus is saying on the last day, he's going to be the judge. He's the Son of Man. He comes in glory. All the angels will sit with him. He sits on a glorious throne, and he's going to, as the shepherd, he's going to separate the sheep and the goats. He's saying, I'm going to do the thing that Yahweh was doing in Ezekiel chapter 34. He's claiming very clearly to be God right there.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I will definitely use this in debates in the future.
Oh, yeah. All right, man. Well,
Thank you for your time.
yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate you coming
Thank
in.
you a lot. Maybe I will show up again in some of these live streams because I will probably have more questions by tomorrow. But thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. And a Merry Christmas because it's around the. Yes. Bye.
Yeah, definitely. Merry Christmas, man. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Eric, you can't do Santa voices. Santa is blasphemous. Anyways, just goofing around. So hope that's clear. Hope that helps. Let's bring up the next guest. Yehuda Yisrael. You are on stage, bro.
Shalom Aleichem. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. So I wanted to, when I have these, I told you I'm a modern Orthodox Jew. I do, counter missionary stuff on my channel, whatever. So I guess to introduce like my approach of discussing, messianic prophecy with Christians, I like to come at it from an approach of mutually agreed upon criteria from the Hebrew Bible. And, based upon how do we isolate which passages both Christians and Jews agree refer exclusively to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. So if you would allow me to, I'd like to sort of start at a point of agreement and see where we kind of veer off course, if that's okay with you.
We could start there and see what happens. Sure.
Okay, thank God. Okay, so what we'll do is in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16, I see this as a prophecy that, now this isn't exclusive to the Messiah, but I think it's the core prophecy that establishes what the Messiah is and what he will, in the most generic sense.
Okay.
But it isn't exclusive, but we'll get to some prophecies later that are based on this exegetical criteria set up here. Okay. So it says, when your days are finished, when, it's talking to David contextually, God is speaking to David, when your days are finished and you shall lie with your forefathers, then I will raise up your seed that shall proceed from your body after you, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish his throne and his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me, so that when he goes astray, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the rod of men, basically saying that it's unconditional, because this is speaking, I believe, about King Solomon in the immediate context. But when we keep reading, it says, but my mercy shall not depart from him, as I withdrew it from Saul, who I removed from before you. And then this verse, and your house and your kingdom shall be confirmed before you, and your throne shall be established forever. So I think we both agree, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this in the immediate context refers to King Solomon, but can also have sort of a double meaning and also apply to the future Messiah. Would we be in agreement on that?
Sure. I think it's messianic.
Yeah, but it's not exclusively messianic, because obviously it's speaking, it talks about sinful King Solomon, right? So we wouldn't say that this is exclusive, but it's pretty specific, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I just wanted to emphasize the criteria here that seem to be unique to the Messiah. Would we agree that it refers to a Davidic king who will establish David's throne basically at the end of days?
Sure.
Okay, great. So the next prophecy that I see, and I think we both agree this is referring to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else, is Hosea chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. So it says, children of Israel shall remain for many days, having neither king, nor prince, nor sacrifice, nor pillar, nor ephod, nor teraphim. And that says, afterwards, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come trembling to the Lord and to his goodness at the end of days. So I think we're in agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when it says David their king in Hosea 3:5, that is exclusive to the Messiah and no one else. Are we in agreement?
I mean, I think that's a pretty strong prophecy. Yeah, I think we both would agree that, and I do believe it's referring to the Messiah. Sure.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Yeah. So we see, and this is based off of that mutually agreed upon criteria that we said from 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16. So we have a consistent exegetical thread started. So what's interesting is if we go to Ezekiel 37, right, we have the same sort of theme where it talks about an exile, before the, coming of this Davidic king. It says that the children of Israel are going to be scattered in verse 21, for example, and then it says they're going to be brought back. And then on verse 24, it says, and my servant David shall be king over them, and one shepherd shall be for all of them, and they shall walk in my ordinances and my statutes and perform them. Mm-hmm. So that also, will we both agree that when it says my servant David shall be king over them, that is referring exclusively to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else.
Sure.
Right. So we have this consistent threat. And there's one more. Basically what we're seeing exegetically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Davidic king, rule at the end of days, establish eternal kingdom, and that's all based on that golden thread going back to 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16. Mm-hmm. And you see it again in Jeremiah 30, right? If you want to, it talks about an exile, restoring the captivity prior to this coming. And then, it says, I'll, break the yoke off of you. And then it says, and it uses actually the exact same wording as Hosea 3, verse 5 and verse 9, when it says, after, I will break his yoke off at your neck, and, basically like you're going to come back from exile and be reunited in the land. It says, and they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, who I will set up for them. So it uses that same language there. So when it says David their king, we both agree that's also exclusive to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. Just like in Hosea 3:5.
Okay.
So excellent. So we have a very consistent standard of, we all agree that this Davidic king who will rule at the end of days is the Messiah. In those three passages, Hosea 3, verse 5, David their king, my servant David, in Ezekiel 37, verse 24, and in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 9. So I wanted to explore consistent themes with all of those prophecies, which exegetically fit that criteria, going back to 2 Samuel 7, verses 12 through 16, about this Davidic king, that the timeline of all these three prophecies that we agree that this Davidic king will come, it appears that they consistently say that the king will come at the end of days.
Okay.
For example, in Hosea 3, it says the children of Israel will remain many days having no king, no prince, no sacrifice, right? Up until that time that Davidic king will rule.
Right. I think you and I agree with that. That's a pretty powerful prophecy right there, because that's exactly what's happened, right?
Right. We don't have a king. So that's exactly what's happening, right? We don't have a sacrifice.
Okay.
Yeah. So great. So we're in agreement that today we have no king and we have no sacrifice, but at the end of days, we will. When the Messiah comes.
When the Messiah comes?
Yeah, David their king.
It says they'll seek David their king.
Yes, at the end of days.
Mm-hmm.
But it says prior to that end of days point, we won't have a king and we won't have a sacrifice. So that's where we are today.
Okay, so what are you driving at?
Can you see what I'm driving at? I don't know. Like, is it obvious? Like, I'm establishing a timeline of when the Messiah comes at the end of days, right? There's no necessity for the Messiah to come before that time, is what I'm saying. Consistently, we have Davidic king prophecies that we have an exegetical standard of this Davidic king coming at the end of days. There's no necessity that this Davidic king must come before that time, according to the
Don't your own rabbis? I mean, I don't have the exact quotes in front of me right now. Didn't they think that he was coming around the 1st century and like it didn't happen? And then they thought it was Bar Kokhba. And then they're like, hey, it's too late. We must have been sinful. So he decided not to come, at least for now. I mean, isn't that like quotes from your own rabbis?
From the rabbis, they actually say that Hezekiah could have been Messiah, but also like every generation, there's a potential. If you want to be really consistent with what the rabbis say, they didn't say that the only time the Messiah could have possibly come was during. We
would say that the Messiah comes twice, once to deal with sins and the other time to there's 2 stages. And so I don't really see a problem from a Christian perspective.
I know that's what you say. I guess I find it interesting that we agree with these three consistent prophecies that have an exegetical standard that we all agree upon, right? You agreed that this Davidic king from that prophecy in 2 Samuel, right? That's the strongest exegetical criteria that I think we have, because we both agree on that. So clearly there is a standard that Jews and Christians agree that the Messiah will be a Davidic king who rules at the end of days. So where do we divide from that, right? That's the question, right? It's also interesting that it says the Lord their God and David their king, right? It makes a distinction between those. I find that interesting. And then also,
Yeah, but then he calls in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, he calls the Davidic king mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and he says that his kingdom has no end.
Yeah, so similar to what we discussed in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16. Remember, we said that King Solomon, even though he was sinful, he's in the immediate context being referred to there? We agreed on that, right?
Yeah, but what does that have to do with what I'm saying?
Because when you look at Isaiah 9, what's very interesting is, I think in verse 7 in your Bible, but in other Bibles it says, it talks about, it says, in token of abundant authority and a peace without limit upon David's throne and kingdom that may be firmly established in justice and equity from now into eternity. So now would mean in Isaiah's generation, which would correspond to the king in that time. So
you're not going to try to say this is Hezekiah, are you?
That's what it says. It says from now. And if you look at Isaiah's timeline, right, Hezekiah fits perfectly with that thing. So what does now into eternity mean? That would be my question to you. What does now mean? When Isaiah says from now into eternity regarding Isaiah 9, what does that mean to you? What does now mean?
What does now mean?
Yeah, from now into eternity. The Hebrew says me'atav v'ad olam, and the translations that you'll see in your translation, even up there, it'll say like from henceforth, right, and to evermore. So what does that mean, right? It says
Hezekiah's kingdom wasn't an everlasting kingdom. He showed the people his treasury, and then ended up his sons were thrown into exile. Like, what are you talking about, man?
Well, remember what I said about the first prophecy we discussed, right? It referred to King Solomon in the immediate context.
So Hezekiah is referred to as mighty God, who sits on the throne of David. Do you know what
Hezekiah's name means in Hebrew?
Yeah, dude, but like,
what does it mean?
No, do I know what it means? No, go ahead, tell me.
It means God strengthens. So I don't think that's a coincidence that God would.
That's a stretch, name. Bro. That is a stretch. And so what do you do?
Bigger stretch. I personally think it's a bigger stretch to ignore the immediate context when Isaiah says now and say, well, this has nothing to do with the greatest king of Judah who had more faith in God than any other king, literally had one of the most miraculous things happen, destroyed an army.
And then immediately showed his treasury to a bunch of foreign invaders, and his kids, his family was thrown into captivity. His own son worshipped idols as soon as he died. That's like how you could say that this would apply to
only the now part. Remember,
to me, this would have to refer to the Messiah.
I didn't say it didn't refer to the Messiah. I want to be clear on that. Remember, just like the first prophecy that we discussed, remember, sinful Solomon is in. Remember, we agreed in the first prophecy that we discussed when I came on here, right? 2 Samuel 7, right? You said that referred to the Messiah and sinful Solomon, correct? Second Samuel chapter 7.
Sure. So why couldn't this apply to
Hezekiah and the Messiah? I'm using the same exegetical standard that we agreed upon at the beginning of the video.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not following exactly all your framing, and maybe that's on me. But when he says that this person, who I believe he's referring to as the Messiah, is Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and it's referring to the same phrase is used for El Gabor, which, I went to the wrong verse, which obviously we would agree upon is God. And then what I would argue is that the Messiah does come, but he he offers a sacrifice for sin, and then he returns later, because I believe that the Messiah is also who's discussed in Isaiah 53.
So using the same criteria that we discussed, the Davidic king that will rule at the end of days, right? Where is the servant of Isaiah 53, or any of the servant songs for that matter, referenced as a king or David?
King or David? He's referred to as a king?
Well, that's what I'm asking, because remember, our standard that we've established together mutually, like the consistent standard that we've developed through all the prophecies we've discussed so far, right? The three that we both agree are exclusive to the Messiah, son of David, all of them mention a Davidic king who will rule at the end of days. We're at a disagreement in Isaiah 9 because I respect the from now part of the now into eternity, where you only respect the eternity part, but sort of you're not really respecting the now and the immediacy of the prophecy and claiming that it can only refer to the Messiah. I'm saying it refers to Hezekiah in the immediate context, just like we agreed with King Solomon, right? I'm
saying that this Isaiah 9 doesn't fit Hezekiah very well at all, is what I'm saying. And I'm saying that Isaiah 53 talks about a servant who will act wisely and should be high and lifted up and shall be exalted.
Right,
and
but
so
where is
that's
that
referring to
in Isaiah 53? What I asked is, like, where is it referred to as a king or as David? Because that seems to be the criteria that is mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So he grew up before him as a young plant, as a root out of dry ground. Well, who is the root out of dry ground?
So once again with Isaiah,
hold on. I didn't even answer the question. You gotta. Sorry, I have.
Yeah.
It said, "There shall come up from a shoot, a sprout, a branch from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his root shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him. Spirit, and I'm sure you'll agree this is messianic. Spirit of wisdom, spirit of counsel and might, the spirit and knowledge of the fear of the Lord. And his delight will be in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what his eyes see, decide disputes by what his ears hear, and yada yada yada."
So I want to be clear. I also agree that Isaiah 53 is messianic. I do not agree that it is exclusive to the Messiah. Just like how we disagree about Isaiah 9, I didn't say that's not messianic. What I disagree is that it's exclusive because in the immediate context, it refers to King Hezekiah. Just as in Isaiah 49, right? In Isaiah 49:3, I think we both agree that when it says, "He said to me, you are my servant Israel in whom I will boast," that this is the same servant as Isaiah 53, correct? I saw you a video on this. Now, what's interesting is, what does it say the servant is? Does it say the servant is Israel in Isaiah 49:3, who we both agree refers to the Messiah, son of David? Or does it say that this servant is David or King or Jesus?
I'm making a connection that he's the branch. He will grow.
But it says Israel, right? Does it say, you agree? And I saw the video of you made a video about this. It went viral. It had like hundreds of thousands of views. And you said that this is actually Jesus when it says, "You are my servant Israel." You claim that's the same servant as Isaiah 53, right? And Isaiah 49:3?
I'm saying there's, he talks about in the context at times about Israel, like the nation, when he calls them like blind and deaf and dumb. And then he talks about a servant who is anointed by the Spirit. Well, who is anointed by the Spirit? We just saw. He
said to me, who is the me there when he says in Isaiah 49:3? It says, "He said to me, you are my servant Israel about whom I will boast." Who is me? Isaiah 49:3.
I'm going to back up because I'm
just curious, who's the me in your estimation? Who is, "He said to me, you are my servant Israel in whom I will boast"? Who is me?
Who is me in here?
Yeah, in Isaiah 49:3. When it says
Isaiah 49. Who? Okay, so
who is me? He said to me, "You are my servant Israel in whom I will boast."
Okay, what I'm saying is that Jesus is claim, or at least Jesus, excuse me. 52:3 or 53:2 is referring to the branch, who is in 11, who is anointed by the Spirit, who is also right here, who is also the servant. "My Spirit, whom I uphold," again, he pours out his Spirit on him. "I will pour out my Spirit upon him. He will bring justice to the nations. He will not cry aloud or lift his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he shall not break. Faintly burning wick he will not quench. Till he bring forth justice, he will not be discouraged. Till he established justice in the earth," so on and so forth. And then it says that he will give you as a covenant for all people, a light for all nations, to open the eyes that are blind, and to bring forth the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prisoners who sit in darkness. So it's the Davidic king. This describes this is the servant, but this also describes the same person who's anointed by the Spirit, who comes from the stump of Jesse, who would be the Messiah.
I'm not saying that this isn't about the Messiah. Remember, my contention is that you're claiming it's exclusive to the Messiah when we both know you did the video that said Isaiah 49:3 is the same servant as Isaiah 53. Yet exegetically, it never mentions that servant being a king or David explicitly, right? It says the servant is Israel explicitly. And I asked you before, I'll ask again, Isaiah 49:3, he said to me, you are my servant Israel, about whom I will boast. Who is me? I just want to get an answer to that. If you'd be so kind to let me know who is me in Isaiah 49:3. He said to me, you are my servant Israel, and about whom I will boast. So who is me?
I'm assuming it's the servant. I mean, who else would it be?
Why wouldn't it be? You don't think it's Isaiah? Isn't he the one being spoken to? He said to me, you are my servant Israel, about whom I will boast.
Are you trying to say that Isaiah is the servant?
Well, I'm asking you, who is me? Like, what is the most exegetical, obvious, Occam's razor?
What difference does it make? What about the rest of the whole context? Like, I guess
the context says it's Israel, correct? It doesn't say Davidic king, which seems to be more.
I'm making the connection that it's a Davidic king because he's the one he's the branch, going back to 11, and then he's anointed by the Spirit, going back to 42, and then I'm saying that there's an Israel who gathers Israel, so he himself cannot just be like the nation himself, who is also a light to all the nations, which I don't know who that's supposed to describe other than Jesus. What other Jew has brought the worldwide worship of the God of Israel?
Well, let's look at the order of Isaiah 49:3, if we may.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're harping on like semantics here instead of like looking at the bigger picture. I don't know.
I'm trying to be exegetically consistent.
I feel like you're just trying to like ask leading questions to get me to just say whatever you want me to say, and you're not looking at the bigger picture. You're not looking at the other points that I'm making. You're just brushing them aside and going, yeah, but who is he talking to here? Like is the branch? So is Isaiah 53? You said he's about the Messiah, right?
I said it's not exclusive to the Messiah based on the exegetical criteria developed earlier, right?
If Isaiah 53 is about a suffering servant who bears the sins of the nations, and then he also, according to this verse, becomes a light to all nations.
Yeah.
Then who else would this describe?
Well, once again, what order does this happen in, right? It says, let's read the verses. He said to me, Isaiah would be the most obvious reading of that. You are my servant Israel, and about whom I will boast, right? And I said, I toiled in vain. I consumed for strength, for not in vanity. Surely my right is with the Lord, and my deed is with God. So first, the message wasn't well received. And then it says, and now the Lord who formed me in the womb as a servant to him, and said to bring Jacob back to him, and Israel shall be gathered to him, and I will be honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God was my strength. And he said, it is too late for you to be my servant to establish the tribes of Jacob and bring back the besieged of Israel. What's the order here? First, Israel is brought back. Jacob is brought back. It says, but I will make you a light of nations so that my salvation shall be until the end of the earth. So what is the order? First, Israel is brought back to its fullness, and then the Gentiles are brought back. So that's the chronology of what happens if we're taking the text.
Who have the Gentiles been worshiping in the past 2,000 years?
Not the God of Israel, clearly, if they're worshiping Jesus, because that's the point, right? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Who do you think we think he is?
I know that's what you think, but that's not what Isaiah is saying he is. He's not saying the God of Israel is Jesus. He's certainly not saying that. And he's not saying the servant is Jesus. He says,
why can't the preserved of Israel be the people, the remnant of Israel that believes and was actually accepted the Messiah? Why can't that be?
It's very interesting because in the book of Acts chapter 13, Paul and Barnabas actually do identify themselves as the servant of Isaiah 49:3 through 6, right? They actually quote that verse, and they say that they are a part of that. So it's interesting that they also agree with me that when it says my servant Israel in whom I will boast,
I don't agree with you. I'm not agreeing with that premise. Don't assume agreement too quickly, bro.
I don't know. We can go to Acts chapter 13. I think it's verses 46 and 47. where they actually quote directly from Isaiah 49:6. And yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. And they say, this is what the Lord has commanded us. So who is the us? Paul and Barnabas?
I think they're probably referring to Jesus. Why would they think that they're the light to all nations? Even if you try to interpret it that way, Jesus says you are the light of the world. I mean, so like they're just saying that the light to the Gentiles to bring salvation to the ends of the earth. Do you think that Paul and Barnabas thought that they brought salvation to anybody? They're just bringing the message of salvation.
I don't know, man. That's what it says in the verse. You asked me and you were...
That's what it says in the verse if you're being incredibly pedantic. But clearly, I don't think Paul or Barnabas thought that they died for the sins of the world.
I mean, regardless, what it says...
Regardless, your point is terrible. Regardless, your point is...
I mean, it says the servant Israel.
Kindly, your point is garbage. Your point is absolute trash.
All right. I mean, it says the servant to Israel point blank, and you say that's the same servant as Isaiah 53. So is it secret? Where can you show me anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible where the word Israel is used for secret code word for Jesus and only Jesus? If you can do that, I'll become a Christian. Aside from your eisegetical interpretation of Isaiah 49:3, if you can show me where the word Israel is used in the Hebrew Bible, anywhere else, aside from your eisegetical interpretation of Isaiah 49:3, using that word Israel, exclusively, right? Exclusively in the Messiah, son of David, and no one else, that word Israel, I will become a Christian. Can you do that for me?
So you need it's basically the exact word fallacy then. Is that what you want?
I'm saying we came up with it.
Okay, so the connections are really
exegetical standard,
okay,
and you're
so
saying
the connections are incredibly clear. It says that he's the root, he's the one with the spirit, he's the one that's anointed, he's the one in 61. I would say that 9, 11, 61, 42 are all talking about the same person, which is all, you connect them all to 53:2. If 53:2, he's saying he's the branch. And Jeremiah and Zechariah all say that the branch is the one who is the Messiah. And then the Messiah is called Mighty God in 9:6. And then he's the one who is anointed, who brings a light to all the nations. And you're saying, wait, this is going to happen at the end of days when, like, dude, just look around you. We already have been worshiping the God of Israel for the past 2,000 years. I think you're just sticking your head in your sand and like being pedantic over like, and yelling eisegesis and all this other stuff. Like, dude, what are you talking about?
In Isaiah 9:6, it refers to this child as Aviad, eternal father. Do you believe that Jesus is the eternal father, that he is the father? The son is called by the name of the father?
No, it's father of eternity. It's saying that he is eternal.
So it's not hyper literal there, but he must be mighty God in the most.
All right, Tovia Jr., thanks for coming there, buddy. Thanks for coming. Bruh. I don't know. What do you do with this stuff, man? What do you do? Tovia Jr. Dark Light, what's up, bro?
How you doing, man?
Oh, you know, just keeping it as real as the streets.
Gotcha, homie. I'm a non-Abrahamic true monotheist.
Okay.
It is my contention that followers of Abraham are a blood cult of sin worshippers. Yahweh, Jesus, and Allah are desert war gods of hypocrisy, not the actual one true creator.
All right. Why do you think that?
Well, there's been 100 million people killed in the names of Yahweh, Jesus, and Allah all throughout history. But I can also use the 10 Commandments to prove that Yahweh and Jesus are not the actual one true creator on the premise of does the best ever father lead through example or by hypocrisy?
Huh?
Does the best ever father lead by example or by hypocrisy? Because it is constantly referred to as, you know, the best father, the good father, the ultimate father. Are you a father, sir?
Yeah. Many times over.
do you teach your children by example or by hypocrisy? Do you teach them by doing the things that you want them to do, or do you teach them by telling them to do things and then you do the complete opposite thing?
What does this have to do? I guess I'm not following.
Well, there's many examples of Yahweh. Well, first off, I will say that Christians created a divergent version of Yahweh and called it Jesus. That they changed almost everything about Yahweh, and therefore it is a different God. It is not the same God, because most Christians will say that they worship the God of Abraham and David, and that is not true, because the the God of Abraham and David is in no way Jesus, and the God of the Jews is.
So what's your evidence for that, though?
For what?
For that claim?
What that they're totally different gods?
Yeah, like what's the evidence that that's what they did?
Well, my evidence is that Christians have changed almost everything about the Jewish God.
How have they changed it?
Well, yeah, okay, well, like for example,
You're good, man. Take your time.
Well, I mean, like, Jesus is supposed to be the Prince of Peace and everything, and Yahweh is accredited with a bunch of genocides.
Okay.
There's a bunch of differences.
When you believe in God, though, you said, right?
I believe in a construct of the one true Creator, but I do not come to my beliefs through the scriptures or dogmas of Abraham. That's why I claim non-Abrahamic true monotheist. I do believe.
So when an Earth
Creator.
Sure. So when an Earth, kind of like a deist, I guess, right?
I'm not quite sure what that is. A deist.
Do you think God intervenes? Can he do miracles?
Well, see, I don't believe in a supernatural God. I mean, we might be getting.
Okay. So is your God all powerful?
No. The one thing that God can't do is create an imperfect creation, because I believe in a perfect God, and all of creation is perfect. And the one thing that my perception of God can't do is create an imperfect creation.
Okay. So we have an imperfect creation, so he's not a perfect God? Is that your logic?
No, he is a perfect God, and all of creation is perfect, is my logic.
Okay. So when people are killed by earthquakes, or people are killed by tsunamis,
yeah,
isn't he being a bad father at that point?
I wouldn't say so. Well, and also you don't believe that murder makes him a bad God either, because you claim the old Yahweh, and Yahweh has killed plenty of people, and you don't use that same point to disprove Yahweh.
No, I don't. I'm just saying that there's a different standard here. So you're saying that Yahweh, from what I'm gathering, correct me if I'm wrong, and you're all good, man. You're saying that Yahweh is bad because he commands certain things that you would think would be a bad example as a father. And yet, according to your own standard, your God created everything, and yet he does still allow earthquakes or tsunamis or floods and different things, and those end up killing people. And so,
well, we never established that I think murder itself is a bad thing. Well, okay. What makes Yahweh and Jesus desert war gods of hypocrisy, in my perception, is that they command people to not do things that they themselves do. They command people. I don't have my list right here with me, but there's a whole list of coveting that Yahweh commanded his followers to do. There's a whole list of murdering. There's a whole list of lies. There's a whole list of adultery. And yeah, like
I would need evidence to back up your claims. I understand you don't have your list in front of you, so I mean, I understand that.
Well, I wasn't raised as Christian, so I don't know the Bible by heart. But
that's okay.
let me try to think of some of them. What was it? King Solomon had all the wives. Any more than one wife is adultery.
Well, did God command King Solomon to take all those wives?
Well, he didn't tell him not to either, as far as I can tell.
Yes, he did.
Did he?
Yeah, King Solomon was specifically judged because he married a bunch of foreign wives, who ended up leading him to idolatry.
I have the best example of adultery that applies to Christians, but not to Jews, which is that Yahweh, according to Christians, had Jesus. He mated with Mary, and Mary was already married to Joseph.
Well, wait.
So
Wait. No, he betrothed, but when God creates something in a womb, that doesn't mean he, pardon the graphicness, it doesn't mean he inserted his member into Mary and impregnated her. I'm not a Mormon, so I don't believe that. He created Jesus through just a word. Muslims believe the angel Gabriel basically blew up Mary's skirt. Okay. Mormons think that God literally came down and physically mated with Mary. We don't believe that. We just believe that he was created by the word. Like it was just like he spoke and Mary was pregnant. There's nothing sexual going on whatsoever at all.
Well, even if it was like a divine impregnation, that is still having child with someone who is not your husband, which there's no way to get around it. That is adultery.
He's Mary's creator. He's not having sex with her. In order to have commit adultery, you have to have sex. There was no sexual anything that happened in the story. So I'm a little confused why you would say that.
Regardless of if you think there was sex or not, the fact still remains that she had a child outside of wedlock, which is, I see that. I understand how you don't have to see that as adultery, but I see that as 100% adultery.
Having a child out of wedlock, if somebody was just impregnated, if somebody was artificially inseminated and they weren't married, is that adultery?
And they weren't married?
Yeah.
Well, Joseph and Mary was married though.
He was betrothed. They weren't married yet. But let's just say that somebody is in any situation. If somebody is artificially inseminated, is that adultery or not? Yes or no?
I would not say so. Artificial insemination was someone that was not married now.
Okay. And so because there's no sex going on, right?
Well, no, because they're not married. It's
right. Well, Mary wasn't married. She was just betrothed to Joseph. And there's an argument that Joseph was actually older and was betrothed to her because he does end up dying kind of early in Jesus's ministry. Before even his ministry started, he was, as far as we could tell, Joseph was completely absent during the ministry of Jesus. Many people believe that Joseph was an older man who was really kind of more of a caretaker of Mary than anything else, especially if you're like Roman Catholic or Orthodox. And so that's just not something we believe. And so what I'm saying is I think your understanding of what we actually believe is causing you to kind of erect a straw man that you're then beating down. I don't think you're doing it deliberately. But I think
that's not the only example I have. That there are a few examples in the Bible of Yahweh approving of adultery.
Where does Yahweh approve of adultery?
Like I said, I don't have my list in front of me. I was just kind of driving around today and I saw your live pop up. I didn't have all my notes with me.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I don't think you're going to find that. I would challenge you to do so. You're welcome to come back. But like David is explicitly condemned for committing adultery with Bathsheba. Solomon is explicitly condemned for marrying a bunch of wives who ended up leading him into idolatry and ended up splitting the kingdom. It ended up splitting the kingdom of Israel because of his adultery. And so what I would really recommend, and I don't mean this, I mean this gently, is if you're going to critique Christianity, like make sure that you're like aware of the text and what they say, and like try to give it at least like the charitable interpretation. And then you're welcome to attack it as much as you want. Like if that's what you want to do, that's what you're free to do. But yeah, I just don't see any of the charges landing here.
That's not nearly all the examples though. Like there's plenty of examples of Yahweh telling his followers to go out and kill people and take their land and kill everything.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. No, that I'm not going to say that that's not necessarily true, but what people don't understand is that for 430 years, he gave them a space to repent. Genesis talks about, he says to Abraham that basically he allowed his own people to go into slavery for 400 years. This is the whole Exodus story, right? And
well, that is claims of the Bible, but that's not architecturally.
No, you can't. You have to, if you're going to critique the story, then you have to stick with the story as it is. You can't kind of jump from like, well, I don't believe that actually happened. What you need to say is, even if that did happen, this is evil. This is wrong. If you want to attack the historicity of it, that's a separate argument.
Well,
So
okay, that's fine, but I don't believe in evil personally because I don't believe in absolute morality. To me, all morality is subjective, entirely subjective.
Well, then why are you, where? Well, if that's the case, then why? If it's subjective, then maybe God's subjective morality is just different than your subjective morality. Who are you to condemn God?
Well, subjectively, I have the power to condemn anything morally, just like anyone else does.
Well, I have the power to tell people that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, but that doesn't mean that it's so. It's just my subjective preference.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. Yep. But
pineapple doesn't belong on pizza? No, I'm just kidding. Right?
No, I'll take pineapple on pizza, but in that same vein,
actually,
though,
I do like pineapple on pizza. Sorry, people, don't throw rocks at me in the chat.
In that same vein, you could turn around and apply that to all of the morality in the Bible, though. The same argument,
right? But I'm saying that your belief, which is weird because you do believe in God.
But I believe in a perception of the one true creator, but like I said, I don't come to it through the scriptures of Abraham whatsoever.
Okay, no, I totally understand that. I get that. I would say that if you're a deist, which sounds like what you are, you're just rejecting any kind of revelation of God, but you just think that God is the creator, and that he doesn't really show himself like through prophecy or miracles in the world, or at least if he has.
Well, that's kind of a misrepresentation because I believe that God shows himself in every single quanta of creation. I believe that we are all.
No, I understand that, but he doesn't do it specially through miracles, like through supervening upon the laws of nature and basically like suspending the laws of nature to show a sign.
I don't believe in the supernatural. I believe that anything that happens is natural, and there's a naturalistic explanation for it, even if we don't have the explanation right away.
You're definitely a deist then, so that's fine. I used to be a deist too, so I understand that. And so, how much of the Bible have you read?
I've been studying it quite a bit the last couple of years.
Okay.
I study all theology. I spend a lot of hours a day on YouTube studying theology. I study Jewish theology, Muslim theology, atheist theology, and I actually have a definition for God that is scientifically verifiable that the atheists absolutely hate. If you would like to hear it real quick.
Well, maybe we could get to that. But my thinking is when you come up here and like I understand you don't have you have documents and that's good and that's totally fine.
I got a big old list spread up with all the different verses and stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Just respectfully, when you come to me and you say you have examples, but then when you do bring up the examples, they're like not really within their full context or they're just like factually incorrect. Let me give you a little bit of my background, just to so you don't understand that I'm not like trying to smack you. I was a deist. I was an atheist for a while, and then I was a deist, and I just rejected Christianity. I didn't even want Christianity to be true, to be perfectly honest. I looked at Islam, and I found it to be silly. So I started to read the Bible, and I was really looking in a way to think that, maybe there's some good in this. Maybe this will give me like, I could kind of cafeteria it. I could take the good morals out of it, and I do believe God exists, and I can just kind of reject the rest. And so I totally understand kind of where you're coming from. But the point of what I'm trying to say is the examples that you're bringing me, they're just like, they're not either factually accurate or they're incorrect, or they're just kind of like a straw man or a caricature of what we actually believe. And so I do believe that you're correct to believe that there is a good God out there, and there is a God who loves us and cares about us. I just think that this particular God, I think if there is a good God out there and he does love for us and care for us, it would make sense for him to become a man, experience the things that we experience, like loneliness or rejection or just hunger, thirst, all of those different kind of things. I believe that Jesus did experience those things. He was rejected. He was forsaken. He experienced the most excruciating and grim death possible. And there's actually a mountain of evidence that shows that He actually was resurrected from the dead. And so I think what you want to really do is look at the central truths of Christianity's claims, try to begin to steel man that first, and then try to poke holes from it from there. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And at a later point, I will call you back with my list so we can go over it more thoroughly. But I would like to address what you just mentioned. There's a couple of things that weren't accurate about what I believe. Okay. I don't quite believe. But when you say God is a good God, I don't believe in objective morality. So really, good has nothing to do with it. And
well,
when you say that God is a loving God, I don't believe that God is necessarily a loving God, because once again, love is subjective. And as soon as Christians say that God is a loving God, that at that very moment they create the problem of evil.
Okay, well, I understand that. I understand that there's a problem of evil. That's why I think God enters into evil and suffers the worst imaginable evil possible, and that he ultimately will bring good out of evil. But what I want to say is that if you don't believe in objective right or wrong, or anything else like that, number one, you're kind of defeating yourself by saying God is evil because of these things, when it's really your own subjective preference.
I never said God is evil.
Okay. You're saying that he's bad, right? He's his father. So you said I love. Sure. Let me finish my point just super quick. Yes, and so you said, a loving father would try to lead by example. What if I, subjectively think that I, as a father, a loving example to my sons would be to show them how to torture kittens for fun, because I think it's fun and I want them to enjoy the fun that I have. And because I am a good father, I want them to stomp on kittens with me. You couldn't really, by any objective standard, tell me that I'm being a bad father at that point. You could not like it. You could think that that's kind of sick and twisted, and what the heck is wrong with you? Testify, do you have a mental disorder? Or you could just be like, hey man, evil is evil, and evil is something that, even if you reject
I don't believe in evil.
So you don't believe stomping kittens just to hear them squeak is evil?
No, I would say that is bad, and I don't agree with it, but I wouldn't call it evil.
You wouldn't call it evil? So grape evil?
You could think of the worst possible thing you can think of, and I wouldn't call it evil. I would say it is subjective. I don't agree with it subjectively, but I would not call the worst, because just like the example you mentioned, grape, there is multiple times in the Bible where Yahweh commanded his followers to go out and steal, grape, and kill.
There's nowhere in the Bible that you're going to say he was commanded anybody to rape anybody. In the situation where he said to kill, that was 430 years that he allowed his own covenant people to be put into slavery. He judged this group of people because they were involved in child sacrifice, bestiality, incest, and other sexual deviant acts, and besides idolatry and everything else. And they were violent, bloodthirsty people. And so, yes, he said, actually, this is your land. I promised it to Abraham, and I'm judging these people. But if you have no objective moral standard to say, like, what is right or what is wrong, what is evil, what is not evil, that it's just all purely subjective. I mean, I just don't think that you're going to ever be able to live consistent. I've tried that. You can't live consistently that way, right? Like, and so I don't think you really believe that, to be totally honest. I think you've convinced yourself of that. But I think evil is evil. I think when somebody is like brutally murdered in broad daylight in front of like a crowd of people for just like talking to people, that would be evil, right? I think, again, stomping kittens for fun just to hear them squeak, I think that's like wrong. And you believe in God even though you don't think that there's any sort of moral character with him. But if there is a God, he would be the best explanation, because if there are moral facts, they're not natural, right? Because you can't get like a bunch of natural facts and then jump into an ought statement. So I applaud you for at least some consistency there. But I think that runs completely counterintuitive to your everyday normal experience. And I think that when you experience outrage because somebody does something that's just awful and an atrocity happens, I don't think you just really believe that's just bad and I don't like it, but that could be okay for them. I don't think that you believe that. And I'm
No,
saying,
I absolutely do. I absolutely do believe that, sir. I absolutely do. You keep saying I don't. There's a difference between bad and evil. Bad is a subjective experience that every single self-aware consciousness will inevitably experience going throughout life.
so what's bad?
Just bad. Bad is any time that something, because we all need certain conditions in which to live and thrive, and anytime those conditions are challenged or taken away, we subjectively perceive
Okay,
that
so
as
just take out the word evil then. So is it bad for me to stomp on kittens for fun?
yeah, absolutely. I would say bad. Yeah,
Why?
but once again, subjectively bad for me. You know.
Subjectively, but it's the same thing. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. That's what I'm trying to show you. So
We'll see. Religion constantly tries to juxtapose their perception of evil over the everyday experience of bad that everyone experiences and call it the same thing, but it's not actually the same thing, because in order to believe in evil, you must believe in objective morality, which I do not.
okay, but I'm saying you could just believe in God and reject. You could reject any kind of revealed religion and still believe in objective
Can I
good and
address
evil.
one other point that you brought up? You said there's no examples in the Bible of grape. Not explicitly. God doesn't say explicitly go grape these people, but he does say go kill everyone except for the young girls. Okay, so you got to read between the lines there. If you're killing everyone except for the young girls, there's a reason for that. It's so that you can procreate with them. And if you just killed their whole family, you can't tell me that's going to be consensual. That's going to be great.
So there are certain conditions. I understand what you're talking about. You're referring to that. And so Jesus talks about Moses allowed certain kind of conditions in marriage, divorce, and all kinds of things. And he specifically says it's because of the hardness of your heart. And so there's a difference between concessions and there's a difference between commands. Okay. So when Jesus says these things are allowed because of the hardness of your heart, but now I'm telling you, and then he points back to the Garden of Eden and he's like, you marry one person, you marry that person for life, and this, that, and the other, like that's a completely different thing. And then he says, I'm a model. Like Paul talks about how we love Christ, we love our wives as Christ loved the church. And he points to Jesus as the model of what marriage actually looks like. And so I'm saying God finds people where they are at and tries to raise the standard. But ultimately, Jesus came to completely raise the standard, but he came to also live inside of us to enable us in order to find to follow his commandments and different things like that. And so you have to, again, contextualize the whole. If you're going to attack Christianity, you have to like attack it within the whole context of like what we believe, not like, well, God commanded this, blank, no context. Like, what is the whole clear message of the Bible about marriage? What does Jesus say about marriage, and so on and so forth?
Well, see, those are some examples of how Jesus is different from Yahweh, right? The one you just mentioned right there, that's one of the many examples of how Jesus is actually a different God than Yahweh.
What Jesus says specifically, he says that he refers to the Garden of Eden, which Yahweh created. And he said, in the beginning, it was not so. He said, God created, Yahweh created them, male and female. And he says that basically that they are, it's one man, one woman for life, covenant forever. And then Paul, reflecting on Jesus's teaching, says that Jesus is the example to the church. And so both Paul and Jesus are saying, no, that is Yahweh. That's his original intention. And so, like, for example, if you think of like a missionary, like if I'm going to a missionary country and there's people who practice polygamy, okay, I'm not going to go to them and say, hey, you must like quit polygamy and like pick one of these wives and divorce the rest of them forever. God is acting as like a heavenly missionary. He's dealing with people who came out of a pagan nation, Egypt. He's bringing them into a nation surrounded by other pagan nations. They are all thoroughly hard-hearted. They're dead spiritually in their sins and their trespasses already as being sons of Adam. And he's saying, like, until Jesus comes and the new birth is something that's available where the Holy Spirit will come and live inside people and bring them to the standard that I actually want. And so there's a difference between the command of law where he's like trying to curb certain evil behaviors. And then the new covenant, which is what Jesus comes to bring, which is the Holy Spirit, God himself, to live on the inside of you and for you to cultivate the virtues of God himself. And so that's like the greater and bigger picture. A lot of people don't quite understand that. And that's kind of just a quick and dirty kind of outline of it. But that's a whole different thing.
Well, to be clear, I do believe in the Christ consciousness, but I don't come to it through the scripture of Abraham. But essentially, I believe that we are all God, because God is a perfect creator, and all of his creations are perfect creations. And I know the Christian standpoint is that, you know, we are born into sin and all this and that. See, I don't believe in sin. I don't believe in hell, because hell is a state in which the creation can possibly be separate from the creator, and that state is impossible. If it were possible for the creation to be separate from the creator, then there would be no one true creator that is perfect.
If somebody commits adultery, does that bring them closer to the creator or further from the creator?
To me, it's neither, because we are already one with the creator, so there is no.
So when I'm in, if I'm committing adultery, I'm still one with the creator.
In my eyes, there is nothing that you can possibly do to separate yourself from the creator. Now you can imagine separation, you can make believe separation, but let's go. Can we circle to my definition of God real quick? It's just 4 things.
You
like it? I'm telling you that the atheist.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead, man. And I probably should go to the next guest.
I got you, homie. So my 4 things that I use to define God that atheists hate because they're scientifically verifiable: is unity, consciousness, dark, and light. But dark and light are not antagonistic; they are symbiotic. The dark and light need each other. But atheists do hate that because those are all scientifically verifiable traits of God.
I'm not sure if I quite follow, but I hope this conversation at least kind of gave you something to think about. I'll say this as somebody who had maybe not quite the same view as you did, but I did object. I did disagree. I rejected objective morality. I objected moral values. I objected moral duties. I objected all of that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's just too big of a pill to swallow. And I think we all know that there are certain things that are right and wrong. And if there is a basis for that, then that basis is supernatural. And it would make more sense for there to be a supernatural person who brings moral facts about. And so anyways, man, I thank you for coming up, man, and sharing your point of view. And yeah, man, take care.
Real quick, could I invite you to my podcast at some point? It's called the Theology Council. I like to get different people together from all different perspectives to talk about things.
Maybe. I have a bunch of kids and I work. And so, but shoot me an email, and I'd love to talk to you about maybe my perspective, and maybe that'll be helpful. So it's just testifyapologetics@gmail.com.
Okay, I got you. And I will call up again later with my full list that we can go through more accurately at some point, if that's all right.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Yep. Take care.
You have a great one, dude.
Yep. All right. Let me try and figure out Wes here. Wes is giving me instructions. Let me see if I can do it, Wes. Let's see if I can do it. I don't know how one would say kicking kittens for fun just to hear them squeak is just bad for me, but not maybe for you. It's a bit odd. Enter city, go into settings. Oh, you know what? This is a team thing that I'm using with Than. Wes, to get you out of jail, I would probably have to contact Than. I'm sorry, man. This is actually his account that he so graciously gifted to me and some others. Not that I can't pay for my own, but it's just something he wanted to do, and I figured why not. And he is the one who has the keys to the kingdom. He's the one who has control. So if you can try from a different account, Wes, I'm more than happy to bring you up. I'm so sorry. But I just don't actually have access to these settings. That would be Than, and yeah, maybe I could text him later, but that be what it be. I got some testifier of Beelzebub. Yeah, dude, I don't know about that. Fazel, you're up, bro.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. Can you hear me?
Am I audible?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm a Muslim, so I think I have spoken to you a couple of times. So I just mentioned in your last discussion like Islam is stupid. May I know in which sense Islam is stupid or some silly or something you mentioned?
It's really hard to hear you. I'm not really making it out very well. Do you have like a better microphone? Oh, he jumped off. Okay. Free Wes, free Wes, free Wes. I want to talk to Wes. Wes is good. I did not mean to ban him. You should see these private chat comments that I got. I can't. I won't even bother saying them. But they're basically just bad words. It's like, wow, you really got to me in the private chat, bro. I'm broken. There's somebody on stage that says he's testifier of Beelzebub. Get thee behind me, Satan. I'm not interested. Come back when you got something normal. Defender of Islam. There we go. Hello, Defender of Islam. What's up, man? You're on the stage. Run. Run like your prophet. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Run like Aisha. Just kidding. That's bad. That's bad. I'm sorry. Or am I? I am not. I'm not sorry. Run like Muhammad from the men of Al-Zut. That got Daniel off the stage in a hurry. Fat boy. There he is. Hey, fatty. Why do you reject Christianity, Than?
Oh, am I on? Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How's my mic sound? I'm doing the studio remodel. I just figured I'd jump in and for a little bit at least to see how things are going.
Yeah. Hey, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you go into the StreamYard and unban Wes? I had a troll that was coming through the private chat the same time Wes was, and he was just saying like gay, poopy, porn, yes, daddy over and over. And so I was just banning him because he came up under like 3 names, and Wes got caught in the crossfire, and he wants to come up. His name is Wes is here, and if you follow his instructions, you can unban him.
Enter the studio settings.
Yeah.
Find the band. Okay.
If you can, if it's not a big deal. If it's like a problem, but I would.
What's the band guest we're trying to?
Wes is here. Is this his name? Is the screen name? So you missed Tovia Singer Jr. earlier. I hate these clip farmers. They're just
I don't see a Wes is here. I see one thing that says Wesley on there.
That might be him. Well, you could try him.
We'll just try it and see what happens.
Wes is almost here. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So what's going on, Brosif?
Nothing.
Just gangsta stuff?
Just doing gangster stuff. I mean, my office is a total mess right now because, like I said, I'm remodeling it.
Yeah.
But
you look like you're out of your dungeon now.
What?
You look like you're out of the dungeon now.
I mean, it's the same place. It's just I'm making it so it will be very cool.
Sounds good. Testifier of Beelzebub, Satan is God. Add me and I will show you the good way of Satan, my Lord. Blessed is he. Yeah, that's a banned guest. It's just a banned guest.
My goodness.
Some people are just weird. All right. So
you
Wes,
said I missed Mini Tove or something?
Yeah, there was Mini Tovia Singer came up. I think he was a clip farmer. You know how these guys do. They just want to like interrogate you.
Yeah.
and not really listen. And then they just want to like, let me find a way to like trip you up in your words and just not let you build your own case and explain to me why it doesn't work. And so I just finally was like, all right, bro, well, that was the best combo.
It's even better when they talk really fast.
They do that. Have you noticed the Dawa guys all kind of like talk to you with that like weird like, so dude, they kind of like have this like they turn on their boyfriend voice a little bit. You know what I mean? And I can't impersonate it very good, but they turn on like this Riz voice, and then they like
I can't even do it either.
And then when they try to trip you up in like some sort of words, like
to do a fake Riz voice.
It's a yes or a no. It's a yes or a no, bro. It's just a yes or a no. Oh, you can't answer. And it's like, dude, I'm gonna kick you. Like, just shut up and listen. I'm not. You're here to talk.
So
to
you're
me,
basically just admitting that you're letting yourself get rizzed up by the Dawa guys.
Well, no, this was the Jewish Dawa guy. He was doing some Jewish Dawa. You know. So anyway. Did you figure out Wes by chance?
I think I did.
Think you unban him? Wes, there he is. Wes, you got us both, buddy. What's happening? You've been set free from purgatory. Wes.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Thank you for going through all that stuff to get me back on.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. What's happening?
We talked the other day.
Is it about miracles?
Yeah, about miracles. You remember?
Okay.
We talked about. You gave me a couple examples I had never heard of. I said that I have a really hard time believing based on miracles because every time I've really dug into it, there's always some natural explanation for it.
Okay.
Like a regular natural explanation for it. So it's hard to. It feels to me like we are just taking edge cases or like rare cases and calling them miracles.
Okay.
And so you gave me a couple examples. I went after our call and just dug into them, and it's the same thing. There's completely natural explanations for them.
Natural explanation for which one? Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I have a question because you guys had a conversation before this, obviously.
Yeah.
When you say there are natural explanations, are you saying the natural explanation is the explanation or like the most probable explanation? Are you just saying that there are possible natural explanations?
Very plausible natural explanations. Not just possible, but plausible natural explanations. I think one of the criteria that Eric had laid out was that there are not, natural explanations, or that the natural explanations would be, I forget how he put it, but
probably would just say inferior to any sort of supernatural explanation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Defy, he said, defy any decent natural explanation.
Sure. So which ones did you?
I looked up the Chris. I looked up the Chris Gunderson case, as well as the guy who supposedly healed him, Bruce.
Okay.
I actually emailed Bruce back and forth a couple times.
Oh, did you?
That's cool.
Yeah. I asked him for the extra documentation, and he said he didn't have it. Or no, he said he said he had already provided it, and that I should go look at a book. And I went and got the book and looked at it, and it was the same stuff that you had put on your show here.
Okay.
And so I emailed him back again and said, I've already got this. Do you have the scans? Because he mentioned that his doctor looked at before and after scans and said, this is impossible. And I said, can we take a look at those scans? And he said that they are in 3D software that makes it impossible for us to look at them.
Okay.
Only a professional can look at them. And that was the end of it. So in other words, I didn't get any additional evidence beyond what you had given me there. And I can go into that, but I actually dug into the Chris Gunderson one further.
Okay.
So
So
Can I put a file on screen?
I'm not sure if you can. Well, maybe you could. You could try to hit present or invite. I don't know if it's going to appear to you though. Okay.
Oh, it worked.
There you go.
All right. So this is from your recent video. This is the case that you just that you had talked to me about a few days before.
Okay.
This is the Chris Gunderson case where basically his stomach was paralyzed, gastroparesis, right?
Yeah.
And it happened when he was 2 weeks old.
Right.
And they had to put this tube in that pumps the food out in this tube that pumps food in, right?
Uh-huh.
And his stomach was paralyzed from when he was a little kid. And there's no medical cure for this. So first of all, you said, this is where I just found this. This is key. It has to defy decent natural explanation.
Okay.
Right?
So do you have a decent natural explanation?
Yeah. And so this is another key. The diagnosis has to be medically documented.
Uh-huh.
So that these are another little points here. In your objections, you said maybe it was misdiagnosed. And I don't disagree with any of this. There's none of this going on in his case, but there was something else that happened. So the diagnosis, when I dug into it, was gastroparesis. There are actually two different types of gastroparesis. One of them is organic, where the organs have failed or the nerves have failed.
Did you read the case study that I linked in the description?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole paper by Josh Brown and Gomez and.
Yep. His case is functional gastroparesis. So Chris Gunderson had functional gastroparesis, not organic gastroparesis. Functional gastroparesis just has to do with the electrical signals. All of the organs are there. They were not able to find any organ failure itself. It's just the electrical signals that were not pulsing. And his type of gastroparesis is healed all the time. So this is from the Boston Children's Hospital website. While there isn't yet a cure for gastroparesis, in some cases it gets better after a few months to years. So when you say, is there a medical cure for it? The answer is no, there is no medical cure for it because they cannot fix it. But if you say, can people recover from it? The answer is yes, they recover naturally from it. How often? So
he recovers naturally from it in 60%?
Yep, in 60% of his cases of gastroparesis, they recover naturally. Now, there's no medical cure. They can't force it to cure, but in 60% of the cases, it comes back. However, his is a very rare case because what they found in this study is that the further you go away from the diagnosis, the lower your chances are of recovery. The more you're going to be one that doesn't recover. So in his case, so this is what's happening in his case. The people who recover early, and I use this meme because it kind of fit with the way you do your theme. So the people who recover early say, okay, we know we're just falling into that lucky 60% that recovered. But the people the longer it takes, the fewer there are that are recovering. And so it looks more and more like a miracle as you get towards the edge cases of this. And that's what I think is happening in this particular case. It's a very natural explanation.
Okay. So you said, go back to the other one real quick. Go back to the types of gastroparesis. Functional. Okay. So you're saying that he had functional, not organic.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So do you know what the conditions are under which functional gastroparesis can be resolved on its own? Because you quoted Children's Hospital specifically, right? And they said that it can resolve on its own or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What specifically are they saying there? Like, what?
Yeah, this is the study where you would find the answer to that question. They did a study on what what is it that causes gastroparesis to go away? Is there a specific therapy that's causing it? Is there something that we're doing that's causing it? And they found, and they just don't know completely why it goes away. They just know that within 6 months, 22% of cases goes away. Within 18 months, 53% goes away. And by the time 36 months go there, over 60% has gone away. Now, the further you get away, the rarer it is. Like your chances get less and less of recovering.
Do they does it instantaneously disappear?
Yeah, spontaneous. Yep. Spontaneous.
Wait, show me. I'd be curious.
Wait, no, there's a difference between spontaneous and instantaneous in the literature. Spontaneous means spontaneous in the literature has to do with no antecedent things that would predict the remission, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instantaneous is
I can do this.
in a quick succession of time. But to my knowledge, functional gastroparesis only really can heal on its own when it's a virally induced gastroparesis.
No, that's not the case, because so the viral ones often go away. They more often go away, but most gastroparesis, they don't know why it starts. It's hard for them to determine why it starts.
Okay, that's called idiopathic, right?
I believe so. But I'm not positive of that. I'm not a doctor or anything. I just looked all this up.
So in idiopathic gastroparesis, we don't know what the cause of the gastroparesis is. We just know it's within the functional category of gastroparesis, and so therefore we need. That's what we know that thing. And on the other side of the coin, we know that there's a functional gastroparesis that has a high rate of remission, right, which is virally induced, right? Was Chris under the category of virally induced functional gastroparesis?
They did not say that as part of the case. So I would assume no. I would assume no, because that seems like a detail they would probably just talk about. He had a bad virus when he was 2 weeks old and he got this as a result of it. It seems like it just came on without them knowing why. But all of them recover. The viral one is actually really well known for. It's interesting because it falls into the same, like the reason that it recovers is often a similar reason that it onset. Like its onsets because the system was so shocked by this virus that it messed up the electrical charge and like the syncopation of the electrical charge. But you often recover by some type of system shock, like a bad virus, or like an interesting case that's similar to this is in World War I. All the shell shock cases, you'll remember them talking about how people got shell shock from being in the trenches. A lot of those guys went blind, not just deaf, but blind, because the electrical signals got messed up and their eyes they had paralysis in their eyes. And then the people that were blind, many of them actually, their blindness came back due to a similar traumatic event. It like reset the system. So they're not sure exactly how it happens. And as a result, they tried like shock therapy and things like that because they were trying to they saw that it was happening. But anyway, this is just a normal thing that happens. Recovery happens. It just happens less and less as you get further away. So people think it's a miracle because they're looking at edge cases.
Okay. So we don't actually really have too much of a model that's naturalistic to explain this. We're just kind of gesturing towards this idea that there's functional gastroparesis that can spontaneously, not instantaneously, resolve on its own, right? And we know the cases
and instantaneously. So how they find out that it's resolved is that they eat a meal and they don't get sick, and they're like, "Oh, it went away."
That's not the same thing as instantaneous.
Well, they just don't. there's not a gradual recovery. In other words, they don't eat a meal and it kind of is good. They eat a meal and either
Right,
they
but
can
that's very
digest it or
different.
not.
That's very different, right? There's a huge difference between in one person, the healing happens instantaneously, and then we just don't know about it until months later when they just out of nowhere decide to try to eat something, right? And then the person that instantaneously gets healed and then right after tries to eat something.
How would you know the difference?
How would I it's not on me to know the difference. It's on you who's presenting the case, this counter hypothesis, right?
How would you know the difference between it? How do you know that his was instantaneous?
Who, Chris Gunderson's?
Yeah, he hadn't eaten a meal. In the interview that I saw of him on CBN, the guy asked him, "This is the first meal that you had ever eaten since you were a baby?" And he said, "Yes, my intestines had never seen a meal other than formula since I was a baby." So this was the first.
I understand that.
I think what
that's
happened
the whole
is
point.
Bruce prayed over him and he got like faith to go eat a meal. And who knows how long his stomach had been operating for, but he hadn't even tested it until that point. And so he could have been healed for a year before that. I mean, he could have been healed for some time.
Which is still a dramatically long period of time.
It is. Yeah.
From 2 weeks old to however,
16.
I forget how old he was at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the places where the functional gastroparesis does heal, right? Again, to my knowledge, it's 2 years. And then after that, it's just kind of hopeless, statistically speaking, right?
No, it's not hopeless. It's a downward slope. It's a gradient curve.
I understand that. And it gets consistently more lower in the probabilities, right? Statistical probability specifically, right?
Yeah, until you get to Chris. If he's on the curve, that's what I'm saying.
Right. So I mean, what is your point?
Curve.
That seems to be more supportive of the hypothesis that something not natural happened here. Right. Just calling it an edge case, right, seems to like that's not really doing anything, because what we're saying is that
I don't know, Eric, maybe you can explain it to him what I'm trying to say, because I feel like I'm saying it pretty clearly.
I'm kind of with Dan right now at the moment. So I mean, I understand I'm trying to understand, but I see what he's saying.
So what we see naturally, what we know happens is that over 60% of his cases heal. How we know it happens is that
under
after
what
the diagnosis,
conditions, within what time frame.
I'm telling you, yeah, under normal conditions with no therapeutic treatment has been connected to it at all. There have been no special conditions for it, and under what time frame is a good portion of them quickly. And then the further away you go, the less people are getting healed until you get to no more people are getting healed.
I guess what I'm wondering, I mean, you're saying this and you're showing me a paper. I'm just wanting to know like more details, like where it specifically says this was the type of gastroparesis that Chris had, which I'm totally willing to say, hey, that's fine if it is.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, this is what he had.
And it's in the document.
It's in his diagnosis. It's called I'd have to look it up, but that was because
what I'm needing is like the specifics. Like I want to see that that he's actually matching. I can take your word for it, and that's fine. But I want to see the specifics of like the case. Like this is exactly the diagnosis that he had. That it wasn't this other kind. And then I want to see. I understand you have like an abstract here, and that's totally fine. I want to see like just basically you back up the claims that it can be instantaneous, that it can be spontaneous, and that it is just something that they eat a meal and they're like, oh, okay. Because if this is a bad test case, then I'm not going to use it. And that's fine. I get that. But what I'm saying is like there are multiple people who are scientifically involved in this particular case, including his own doctor who doesn't have like a dog in the fight. You would have to say that like they made a mistake or like they're wrong for attributing it to, you know, medically impossible to, this is actually very likely. They would have, because if that was the case, I feel like his doctor would have been like, well, actually, there was a chance. He probably would have given him that hope at like the very outset, like this could resolve on its own. Let's keep our fingers crossed kind of thing. and maybe we could
I don't
occasionally
know.
try to eat a meal orally.
Yeah, where
and see
are
what
you
happens.
getting that Chris had functional gastroparesis, by the way? I know that it's idiopathic, but idiopathic doesn't equal functional.
Yeah.
If you can show that it equals functional, then you feel free to show us. But right now, I'm just like, there are a lot of dots that are, you're putting some dots on the paper,
Right.
but
So
it's not enough
in
dots for me to
his
connect it all to just like reject it. Because if it's a bad test case, then I'll throw it out. I still feel like I have other good test cases.
right. Yeah, so he had severe gastroparesis with normal small bowel motility as part of his diagnosis, and organic diseases, the ones that where the muscles are actually dead, affect the entire digestive tract. So for them to see that small bowel motility means that there's an isolated signal problem, which is a functional disorder. There's also a note in there that says unclear etiology, and pseudo obstruction, which means it's acting as if there's an obstruction, but there's not an obstruction there. And there's also a question mark.
Yeah. Okay. So you're
There's
just
also
making
a question mark
based off
no, those are descriptions of functional disorders. Those are
I know. I understand. That's not
descriptions
to undercut what
rule
you're
out.
saying.
Yeah, those descriptions rule out organic disorders.
I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I was under the impression you were saying the case study itself said he had functional gastroparesis. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, his diagnosis that he puts out, his medical records.
Okay. Yeah, man, I have to look more into what you're saying because, like I said, you're giving me some like part of the picture, but I would have to like verify to make all of the connections that you're making with it. Because again, if I'm thinking if this is a doctor and there are other people medically involved who are probably, updating any kind of things that they're inserting into his stomach, different things like that, they're going through this process over and over again, and they're resolved, as you say, very often, 60% of the cases, then to me, this would be almost like, what are the doctors doing? How come they're not offering him any hope? Why does he feel like he has like this death sentence over his head kind of a situation? If this is what you're saying, I'm not saying doctors can't make mistakes. They absolutely can. They do. But we're talking about like multiple medical professionals who are involved in this particular situation. And so I want to know if it is the functional kind, and then if what you're saying about the functional kind actually like bears out. So is that fair?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as the doctors, saying it's a miracle and agreeing it's a miracle, I think that when you're a doctor, every time somebody gets healed and they're a strong Christian, their eyes glisten and they say it's a miracle. Maybe not every time, but I'm sure a doctor.
We don't know the faith.
So
we don't know. We don't know anything about what his doctor believes or doesn't believe. There's nothing.
What I'm trying to say is, if a doctor hears their patient say, "Oh my gosh, it's a miracle," they're not going to be like, "Well, actually."
I mean,
they're just going to be like, "Yeah, amen."
That's not always the case, because I know for a fact I've had people share testimonies at my own church where they thought they did receive a miracle, and the doctors were like, "Well, no, actually, this is medically explicable," and they were like, "Whatever," and they chose to believe it was a miracle. Now, personally, in this case, I'm not sided with the doctor, and so, but I'm not saying that we can't just like make those kind of assumptions about human psychology like that, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I wish.
This is why I just, back to what the reason I had originally called is because it's just that I can't trust. It's very hard for me to trust miracles as a proof for Christianity.
But why?
Every time I've dug into a miracle, it's like, oh, well, here's where the wrinkle was. Here's.
I think you're looking at this in a weird, in a not properly framed way, because what I'm interested in is the question of whether the posterior probability for the miracle hypothesis in any particular case is higher than any non-miraculous hypothesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I'm not interested in proving with 100% certainty or 90% certainty or whatever, right? I just want to know what the best explanation of what actually happened is. And if you have a really hard time with miracle simpliciter, well, then no matter what ends up happening, right? No matter what data you come across, if you just think if you know what the term prior probability references, if you just think that the prior probability of any miracle account is just so low that nothing's really going to change your mind, then that's the problem that needs to be addressed.
Well, it's not that I think it's so low. I think that I honestly think that I could see it, like the possibility of God. I'm not the type of person who says God is impossible. I can see like
yeah, you can assign a non-zero prior that's like
I can see all of that. Yeah. So I mean, if God is there, then miracles are completely possible, right? And vice versa it's just harder to prove the other way around, because it's like,
well, again, okay, that's the point. You're interested. You're talking about proof though.
Well, but it's like, show me a miracle. So here's the thing: if you and I, we've all seen lots of magic tricks in our life, and every time you see a magic trick, it's like, that looks like magic. It's like, that's amazing. But then you dig into it and you're like, okay, there was something going on. And that's just every single time I've been presented with a miracle. How do you know
that that's what's going on though? Like with Chris Gunderson's case, right? You just found that we found that functional gastroparesis can spontaneously go into remission. However, we also found and discussed that the longer it takes, the lower the statistical probability of remission is, right?
Right.
Hence your use of the phrase edge case.
Right.
So despite the fact that he had this for about 16 years, and that's a really, really long time, and I don't even think we have a parallel to that. I don't know what the longest case of functional gastroparesis is where there was a remission. Nonetheless, you'd sooner believe that this is just an edge case that has never happened before in terms of how long it's taken, right?
I mean, I'm just doing some digging myself, and it's not anything deep. So I'm not trying to say that what I'm finding here is right or wrong. I'm going to look more into this, and I appreciate you coming up and bringing it forward. But is it the case that functional is mild and also fluctuating? Because the information that I'm looking up, it says that it's more of a mild or fluctuating thing. Yeah. Again,
no, that's not the same. That's not the same thing.
Okay.
The difference is, are the organs damaged? Do the organs need to regrow, or is all the hardware still there? Is the hardware there? Is it a software problem?
Right, but if it's a software problem, are they still going through all of these different surgeries and different things and insertions?
The only surgeries he had was the tube to get food and other stuff out of his stomach because it wasn't pumping. So
okay.
just
I'm just asking questions. Yeah, like I said, I don't know for sure.
Food back into the intestine. Those are the only surgeries he had. He did not have any hardware problems. All of his organs and nerves were intact and in place. They did not say, okay, before his nerve was not connected to the stomach or the stomach was not connected to the intestine. It was all there in place. Okay. It just had an electrical issue.
I might reach out to Josh Brown on this, since he's the one who wrote the paper, and clip this and send it to him, because I'm just kind of curious to know, because everything that I'm looking up, and again, I could be completely wrong, functional disorders just don't show the same level of failure that he has. They're not usually onset in infancy, or require the like the Nissen fundification, the pyroplasty, the J tube, all these other things. Although again, like I said, I'm willing to be mistaken. I'm just thinking as I'm going here. I'm thinking out loud, and I'm like, I just want more details.
Yeah, I mean, the easy way to do it is to look up his diagnosis and see if there was any organic damage. And
Well, that's what I'm.
there's
That's what I'm.
several places
That's,
go through, and they're saying there's no organic damage, and that means it's an etiological. It's an unknown cause.
right. What I'm saying is, it looks like the case is organic because it's demonstrable physiological dysfunction. It's not just the symptoms.
I mean, functional. Electrical issues cause physiological dysfunction.
Okay.
It's not physiological deformity. The physiology is there. It's just not functioning correctly. That's the definition of functional paralysis.
Okay. I'll look into it more, man. That's fine.
The plug is in the wall and everything is there. It's just the electricity is not running. There's some syncing problem between the brain and the stomach that got resolved for him at some point, and he found out that it was resolved when he went and ate a cheeseburger after he got prayed over. That's all that happened, and it's sad. I want it to be a miracle, but at the same time, I see the ace up the guy's sleeve. Like I see it's just
ace up his sleeve.
Excuse me.
This is what I'm talking about.
I don't
the
mean to
problem
say
for priors
he
again.
is tricking. Okay, that's a bad analogy. What I'm saying is I see the way that it actually happened. That excludes it from being magic. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he is tricky. I think,
but again, that's assuming that the prior probability of the miracle happening is lower than the prior probability of a spontaneous remission 16 years later.
I completely agree. And brother, I got to tell you, the likelihood that it's a miracle is less than the likelihood.
But you're using the wrong language there right away, right? The likelihood is about the probability of the evidence stated given the hypothesis, right? And the prior probability is the probability before we look at the evidence.
Okay.
Right.
I mean,
you think
I
that
don't
the prior
know
probability of a miracle happening is lower of Chris Gunderson being healed is lower than the prior probability of Chris Gunderson having a spontaneous remission 16 years later.
I don't know how many people are miraculously healed from this.
Okay, great.
I don't even know how many
I love
people,
what you just said.
I don't even know how many people are naturally healed
what you
from
just
it.
said there.
So I definitely don't have any record of how many people.
Well, that's that. Yeah, I love what you just said there because this is a mistake that I see that happens all the time when it comes to these discussions. Because you said how many people. Okay, so right there you're referencing a type of probability called statistical probability. But that is not the only kind of probability. And if that was the only type of probability, then we could never justify first-time events. Right?
Okay.
So think about it this way. Like imagine I had a spring in my hand and I go, sorry, Eric, this is your wait.
No, you're good, man. No, you're totally good. Go for it. I'm busy studying over here. I'm like trying to see the distinctions if the distinctions are accurate. I'm not saying.
So imagine I had a spring in my hand, and we've traveled back in time to the first time the spring was invented, right? And I go, Wes, this has never been done before. I just invented the spring. If I compress it, what is the probability that it will decompress when I let go and do spring stuff? You're not going to tell me it's 0%, right? Because statistical probability isn't the only type of probability out there, right?
Okay.
We have statistical probability, we have physical probabilities, which is relevant to the spring example. Physical probabilities are the extent to which some antecedent states of affairs make probable some later than states of affairs, right? We use that type of probability in weather, all sorts of stuff. And then there's epistemic probability, which is just the degree to which some proposition supports another proposition. And we use this all the time. And so when you ask the question, well, how many people have actually been miraculously healed? You're asking a question about statistical probability, not epistemic probability, which to me is the question I'm much more interested in. If that makes sense.
What do you think is the is the prior for the miracle in this case?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Because we can
Why
only, when it
are
comes
we
to
talking
epistemic
about
probability.
priors? Why are we talking about priors for miracles if we don't know what it is?
Well,
We
if you'd
can't
let me
even.
finish,
Oh,
because
okay,
I'm not
sorry.
gonna, I'm not gonna assign a quantitative value here, right? I'm gonna do qualitative reasoning here. So, for me, based off what I do know, I think that a miracle case is going to be much more likely in terms of the priors than some sort of spontaneous remission 16 years later. Or at worst is not going to be so much more less likely than a spontaneous remission. And at that point, I can ask the question, okay, well, what is the probability of the evidence that we do have given the miracle hypothesis versus the spontaneous remission hypothesis? And I'm going to say that the evidence is much more expected on a condition that he was healed miraculously than the spontaneous remission hypothesis. So even if the prior probability is just even marginally higher, I think that the strength of the evidence is much higher.
Okay. In this particular case, when you see that people can recover from this and do recover from this, how do you use
16 years later
the analysis that you're trying to do there? How would I use that analysis to determine whether that was a miracle or one of the natural cases?
Yeah, that's totally fine. That's why I'm saying we can even just assign a prior probability that's higher than the miracle hypothesis here. And I still think that the force of the evidence is strong enough to say that the posterior probability is higher on the miracle hypothesis relative to the spontaneous one.
Okay, I think that if you think it's more likely, and I'll say this respectfully, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but if you think that it's more likely that this was a miracle than that he was one of the ones that naturally recovered, I just think that really makes me wonder about using Bayesian analysis for
You use it
miracles
all
like
the time.
this.
You
Is
use
it
it all
for
the time.
miracles? I mean, it.
Wait, so the fact that somebody disagrees with you about the posterior probability tells you that you can't use this type of reasoning? Is that?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, maybe.
Then don't
maybe.
use deductive reasoning. Don't use deductive reasoning. Don't use
that's-
inductive reasoning. Don't use abductive reasoning.
No, I'm being sarcastic. It's I completely understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I don't see how you can attach prior probabilities to miracles.
Okay, well then you have no grounds to say
very...
that. But hold on, that means that you have no grounds to say that the probability of the miracle claim is lower than the naturalistic hypothesis.
Okay.
Right, because if we can't
man,
talk
you're
about
honestly
probability when it comes to
you're
miracles,
way
then
over my
you
head,
can't
man.
argue
I
against
can't.
them.
I'm not. I don't know enough about Bayesian analysis to be able to talk with you on this stuff, man. I just if you feel like you've applied Bayes to this problem, and you think that it's more likely, it's showing that it's more likely to be a miracle. That's strange to me. I'd have to really learn more about Bayes in order to be able to.
Why is it strange to you? Because it seems like the only reason, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, it seems like the only reason you think the prior probability is low is because miracles are weird to you.
I just think no, it's not even that.
Help me understand why you think the prior is low besides vibes.
Well, how would you say in Bayes? I don't know Bayes very well. How would you say in Bayes that the prior probability is 0? Is that even possible?
You would demonstrate some sort of a contradiction or something like that.
Okay, so I don't even think it'd be possible to say that miracles have a 0 probability, right?
I mean, you could, in theory, like say you think that there's good reason to think that God existing is impossible.
Okay, like a logical impossibility or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Or say you've proved materialism, and therefore
incoherence of theism
you get
kind of stuff.
you know what I'm saying. Like, there's a few ways that you could, in principle, try to do that.
How does your let's say your I don't know how Bayesian statistics or analysis even works, but let's say it's not zero. Your prior on miracles is not zero, but it's like one notch above zero, whatever that is, whatever a notch is in Bayes.
Yeah, you could just assign like an epsilon, which should be like a shorthand way of saying it's like 1 times 10 to the negative 200th power, or something like that. Yeah.
So why is it that how would it be possible? So if I don't want to say it's zero because I can't prove it wrong or prove it's a contradiction, so I set it at like the lowest possible setting, because like what in your mind would cause my prior to move up from the lowest possible setting to
I don't
the
even know
next
why
highest?
Yeah, I mean,
setting?
before we even go there, I don't know why you would even assign such a low value to the prior.
I've never experienced it. I've never seen it. Every case that I've ever studied on it turns out to not, be.
Let me show you why I think that type of reasoning leads to bad counterexamples that I think both you and I would agree are actual clear counterexamples to that type of reasoning, right? Because I believe in some sort of abiogenetic model happened, right, for origin of life, and I would presume you do too.
What is that?
Abiogenesis, the idea that like
life came from nothing.
Yeah, life came from non-life, to keep it short and sweet to the point, right?
Yeah.
You and I both probably hold to that, right?
Sure.
Now here's the question: what is the prior probability of abiogenesis? Well, I've never seen life originate from non-life. We've never been able to replicate it. And every single time we've seen life arise, it's always right from some other type of life. I mean, if we were to count up the amount of times life has originated, like has come from something, it's been from life for the last however long the Earth has been around. I don't remember off the top of my head. That number of times that life has come from life is in the like septillions, because that's the highest number I can think of off the top of my head. Nonillion, probably more, right? And so the ratio is going to be at least 1 over nonillion, probably more, of life coming from life versus non-life. So the prior is going to be like astronomically low. Yet, on what basis do you and I believe that it happened? For me, I've never gone out and done the experiments. I believe it on the basis of the testimony of the scientists who have gone out and done the work, right?
Okay.
And so the prior probability for abiogenesis, based off the criteria you've given so far for justifying a low prior for miracles, it seems like if we applied those criteria and those chains of reasoning to other places, it leads to really weird counterexamples that I don't think we would find so intuitive anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if that analogy, that analogy seems to break down to me though. But I'm not prepared to talk about statistics and probability. I just don't. I don't know anything about that.
That's totally fine.
Man,
this is total nerd stuff, and I don't blame I don't blame you at all. But this is, and I'm not trying to like bludgeon you with any of this stuff too. So I'll just say this: I'm bringing this up not to bludgeon you with probability theory and all the dorky stuff. I'm bringing this up because this is. I hope you can see the importance of this stuff when it comes to actually assessing miracle claims, though. It's not as cut and dry as, well, statistics, right?
Right.
I'm gonna have to jump in because I actually need to go to work pretty soon.
Oh, sorry, Eric.
No, you're totally good. Dan he's trying to convert you to his Bayesianism, which is actually good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for real though. So just to kind of wrap this up, I'm sorry if I was distracted. I was letting you guys go at it because I'm writing to Brown, who was one of the people who published the paper. And I try to include the distinctions that you made. Because here's the thing, if I'm using a bad test case, I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. I'm willing to say, okay, that's not a good case. Okay, so that's fine. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. What I want to know is that if it is actually the kind of thing that you said it was, whether this is really the functional or the organic. I try to make those distinctions clear. I tried to send this to Brown, doing a little digging and research. It doesn't seem like I'm not totally following how you've jumped to the conclusion that it was the other kind. I mean, I totally get why you're saying that. I'm just not 100% sure. I'd have to look into it more to really answer that more in an educated way. But I appreciate you bringing that forward. I think what Than is bringing up is important because with the whole Bayesianism, that's how we're going to assess any kind of evidence, right? And so, like, you're looking at some of this stuff from like a frequentism kind of standpoint, it seems like, and we're just saying like that's faulty. I'd be interested to see you poking holes in some of the other cases because I think it'd be extremely difficult to say rebut something like Bernadette Moreau or what's the other one off the top of my head? Why am I drawing blanks on names all of a sudden?
Yeah, I'll look up the other one you just mentioned.
Greg Spencer. I mean, I would be really interested to see how you would respond to something like that. Why can I not remember her name all of a sudden? Barbara Snyder. I think good luck. I would salute you if you could somehow disprove that, because it's not a matter of the case for miracles isn't based on like one particular like case study. It's like, I don't want to use a crap case study. So if you're poking a hole in a case study and there's like a real hole there, then you should be like congratulated for pointing that out. And people like Brown and Romez and the people who wrote the papers need to retract that paper or update that paper or something. So I'm totally fine with that. Do that all you want. I would encourage it. I think you're going to have a harder time with somebody like Barbara Snyder or with Greg Snyder, who does have that. And you saw the video, obviously you flashed it on the screen. And so, and then, like I said, I'm not sure that the way you're describing Chris's case is actually right, because to me that assumes a lot that the people that were involved just kind of were making mistakes and giving him no hope where he should have had. I mean, if my kid was diagnosed with something that they have a 60% chance of recovering, and I'm not even told that, dude, I'm going to be like, what the heck is wrong with you, doctor? I mean, give me some hope. So I'm struggling to think that they made these mistakes, but you did like some Google searches, no offense. I mean, we're all using Google. Okay. And then kind of came back and we're like, no, this has got to be what it is. But dude, it could totally be possible. 100%. It could totally be possible. And so anyways, I appreciate you coming up. I'm sorry we have to go. I would like to talk about this more, but I just have to.
I've had a great conversation too. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it on both sides.
Yeah, appreciate you, Wes.
I might, try to call back in and talk about some other things. The miracles are just, it's going to be hard for me to get on the train on the miracle car. So maybe there's some other way I can get on the train, but it's really tough. Every time I look into it, I run into this. So
you can look into the other ones. I'm willing to talk to you anytime about New Testament miracles and different things like that, resurrection. Maybe that doesn't just do it for you, but maybe if you just haven't heard the case exactly like maybe I would say it, because I'm not like some minimal facts guy that is just like, well, 1 Corinthians 15, bro, like just convert. And so I would try to give you better evidence than just that, because I think it's a cumulative thing. I think fulfilled prophecy in and of itself is a miracle. And so this is just one argument. And there's just so many of these that I think even if you can poke holes in a couple of them, like for instance, today, I found one that I read in one of Keener's book and I looked it up, and because I'm sympathetic to your skepticism, I'm skeptical too, as it comes to find out this case that Keener was using, where this lady says that like Jesus appeared to her and like she instantaneously was healed from basically being crippled, and she had all the documentation. This is something that happened to her because she fell at work, and it started the whole thing. and she was crippled for like 14 years, and suddenly she could walk. But yet at the same time, she was sued by her employer for fraud, and the whole thing was super suspect. I would never use that case after looking into that. And so I do this stuff too. So I don't want you to think like, oh, well, Craig Keener said it, and I'll just like throw it up on the screen here. Like I look into these too, and I try to figure like which ones are like the best ones. And so I can't throw rocks at you for doing something that I'm doing. I think that's good. So anyways, I'm yammering, so I will let you go, man. But I appreciate you coming up. Yeah, thanks, Wes. All right. Well, Ali, sorry, buddy. I know you're waiting backstage, but I got to go. Brother's got to work. And so, all right, man. Well, Than, thanks for coming up. Chubbs, good luck on your new studio. I'm working on mine too. I got lights. I got a mic, so you guys don't have to listen to this crappy USB mic.
Yeah.
Come in.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to text you. Obviously, this is the mic. It was driver issues on my end. So
okay.
My new mic is coming in. Let me know if you want this one.
I ordered another one, a super fancy Mike Winger endorsed mic. So,
nerd.
Yeah. So it was a pricier one, but anyways, anything's better than this USB crap. So
cool,
man. Man. Well, thanks for
Catch
coming
you later.
up, bro.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Yeah, we'll see you. All right, everybody, stay gangster.